forget to like this video if you like it. Click subscribe, click notifications for future contents, and don't forget to share it with a friend. Don't forget to like this video if you like it. Click subscribe, click notifications for future contents, and don't forget to share it with a friend.
Shalom, shalom. Greetings, blessings, family. Blessings to you all. Welcome to Masculinity Monday. And I do have the correct backdrop on my green screen tonight. Blessings to you all you brothers. I pray that you all had a blessed week. We have not been here on this channel since last week, Monday. And we're going to definitely talk about the time that we had last week, Monday, with our dear brother Hondo Solomon. We had awesome interview session with him on the panel. He was interviewed on the panel and took questions from the audience. So if you missed it, it was a treat. Definitely was like sitting at the foot of a professor, just sharing knowledge, wisdom, life experience, just imparting his years of being dedicated and learning this particular space of polygyny. And so we got a good one tonight. I got my brothers in the background. I'm gonna bring them on. Here we go. Shalom, shalom, brothers. Blessing. Greetings.
Shalom.
How we doing?
Shalom. How's it going?
Well. Good evening. Yes, how's it going, man? How was the weekend? The week? What's the word?
It was very full of a lot of reading. I'll say that.
Full of a lot of reading. Good for you, man. Good for you.
Gotta make the time.
Yes. Which is a something that I am working on, freeing up my time, as you and I talked about offline. Got a whole lot of rest this past Shabbat. I mean, intentional. I mean, I slept. You know, I think I made my pillow tight. It's so much.
He was over there drenching his pillow in saliva.
Oh, my goodness. It was just wonderful, man. Goo goo gaga. Yeah, it was beautiful.
That's how you know it was good.
Yes. Eat, sleep, and eat. Yes. It was a wonderful day, man. Wonderful day. It was blessed. How about you, Aki? We got Aki Manilow down here. What's going on, brother?
Nothing much. Just chilling. Just taking a rest after a long day.
A long day. Okay, so you had a long day today.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good thing. Productive.
Yeah, and it's also a pleasure that you know. It's also a pleasure that you made on here with us tonight, man.
Yes, man. Yes, man. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, he had us waiting, man, over a year to get the brother on. Like, you know, well coveted, well sought out. You know, panel guests. And we finally got him here rolling with the brothers, man. This is a blessing.
Yes, sir.
It's good. Okay. Aki's, he owns all of the comment sections or all of the live streams.
Sometimes he beat us into the doggone thing.
Yeah, what? Make sure nobody in the comment section go to sleep. Yeah, man. Yeah, but it's blessed though. We got some comments came in. Sister Deborah, call for wisdom. All right, shalom, sister. Shalom to you. Blessings to you.
Shalom. Good to see your icon, sister.
Yes. Good. Blessed to see you. And then we have SWR. Blessings to you, brother. He says, peace to all. Concubines are not shameworthy. No, not
absolutely. But you know, Western society will shame them, and it's like, no. They're part of the household. Come one, come all. You can do something in here too.
Yep. They play a role. They have a part, especially in the kingdom.
Yeah.
There's definitely I don't want to go too deep in it, but yeah, definitely they play a significant role. Every aspect of family, marriage, creation reflects, it communicates, it reveals, as Paul says, his invisible qualities, right? It tells us something about his ministry of deliverance for his people, and the redeeming mankind, and dealing with sin, judgment. His creation reveals all of that. And so, concubines are included in it as well. And we definitely can dig into that a little bit later when we dig into the scriptures, and peel this back a little bit further. Shalom to you, brother Aki. Blessings again. He's commenting in the chat room. See, he's in two places at one time. He's on the panel and he's on the chat room at the same time.
Hey, heaviest the head that wears the crown, man, and Menlo ain't trying to get that crown up.
Say he's the king of the chat room, man. King of the chat room, man. All righty. Anything special or interesting or new that's going on in the news, current events, anything like that? Yeah, we don't always talk about that, but I think it'll be a good time to talk about something. Anything special? Anything interesting?
Well, I know. I'm just go ahead, brother Menlo.
No, I was just thinking about what Cuba been going through. They said they've been having a lot of power outages throughout the whole island.
Do you think has something that's an effect or systemic due to the storm?
Possibly. Some people, I guess some people think otherwise, but I'm just kind of watching and seeing what's going on.
I wonder if it's because they've been too dependent on maybe the government or a power grid for so long, instead of, because Cuba gets a lot of sun. I'm like a lot of these other places outside the U.S. I'm surprised they just don't go ahead and just do solar power for their place. I'm surprised they don't, but I also understand the cost of it too.
Yeah, it takes money, because if they don't have the technology to build that infrastructure themselves, and now they have to import, from other sources internationally, and so if in Cuba you got people driving in cars made in the 1960s, so right. So I mean,
you got that in the U.S. too.
Yeah, I mean, it is just so much weight on the system because it's centralized. So you can only imagine, to get solar panel, like that's expensive here in the U.S. You can imagine in Cuba.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
It's expensive here. Yeah. Yeah. But we got a good show tonight, man. Good show tonight. I'm looking forward to this one, man. Sister Deborah hit me up with a message earlier. She's kind of excited for this particular topic too. So this is a good one. It's a good one, man. Brace yourselves. So tonight's topic, before we get into it, I think it'll be fitting if we get into a word of prayer. Brother Manuel, would you mind open us up with a word of prayer?
All right. Abba Yah, we come to you humbly in the name of your son Yahushua. We thank you and praise your name. We thank you for protecting us today and our family and friends. That I thank you that we made it home safe, and that we'll have a blessed live this evening. That we will learn new things here and be enlightened about certain things, and just sharpen off of each other. And we just thank you and praise your name in the name of your son Yahushua. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, brother. Thank you for that prayer. Blessings. All righty. So this is it. So tonight, again, we want to welcome everyone to Masculinity Mondays. This is our Monday night man cave show here on Digging on the Word. And this is where we have a safe space for the men to talk about issues near and dear to biblical masculinity, things pertaining to manhood, things pertaining to what it is to be a Yah-fearing man. And so, this is where we could talk about these things. There are not too many spaces. I mean, actually, it's growing. We know here on social media, there's a lot of content creators that are developing channels and platforms and pages, and they're talking about masculine-centered issues. But that's what's important for us to talk about here, definitely from a biblical perspective. Shalom, brother D. Blessings.
Shalom, brothers. Shalom, brothers. How you doing?
Masculinity.
Thank you, brothers.
Masculinity.
Hello, brother Jeremy. Hello, brother Manuel. How you guys doing today?
Shalom, doing good.
Doing blessed, brother. You caught me by surprise. I was gonna play you in, man.
Yes, Deacon has arrived, right?
I try to slide in so I don't have the finger in the air like brother Mike. Like
Going to the bathroom. I hope they don't see me.
The deacon has arrived. The deacon
Thank you for
has
that one,
arrived,
brother Jeremy.
All right, man. All right.
Oh, by the way, before you start, brother Mike, and brother Jeremy, great Masculine Monday interview. I was able to finish listening to it. It was fantastic. A lot of great information, and anyone who is listening who missed that, definitely check out that interview. It was fantastic. A lot of information, a lot of details they covered. Good job, guys.
No, thank you. Well, you were missed for sure, indeed. But yeah, we definitely had a whole lot of fun, man. And as you said, there was a lot to learn. Brother Hondo shared a lot of information, a lot of experiences, because that was his goal. His goal was he wanted to really bring out something that has been missing in the space. Like oftentimes as creators, advocates of polygyny, you're always, especially in the biblical space, we're often getting content that's talking about it's valid, it's biblical. Solomon had them, David had them, right? So I mean, that's what we normally get. But to really talk about the practical side today, or the experience, or what the life is like for a person living through it, and that's kind of like where the interview we wanted to accomplish that. I don't know how well that was.
No, it went well, brother. Definitely. Yeah. I received that too, and I like the way he gave his platform and his introduction. Is pretty much the way I gained from it was how it looks like from a modern perspective, because as the seasons go, certain things, the main basis is there, but it can be shown in a different form, pretty much, you would say.
Listen,
it's just like studying. I was actually listening to a podcast, a Spanish podcast, and the guy said, years ago we go to the encyclopedia, we go to the library to learn. Everybody wants to get a computer. Yes, that's great, right? Because it adds a modern way to learning, but you want to have the basics first in place. Because when you have the basics in place, then you have the computer. You just at that point, you just flying to the moon at that point.
Yes. And on that point, we have these terms that we create. They're not in scripture. Terms such as monogamy, polygamy, they don't exist in scripture. Polygyny, they don't exist in scripture. These are terminologies that we use based on concepts that are in scripture. So in scripture, it's just union between a man and a woman. It's just marriage. All right, brother Hondo in the chat. Shalom, brother. Blessings to you.
Shalom, brother
Shalom,
Barnes.
shalom.
Brother Hondo.
Shalom.
Thank you for coming on.
It's true. It's definitely true. Is we don't have these different titles and stuff. I think sometimes we get so stuck on titles
Yes.
of
Yes.
things, and I
Yes.
think that's what gets us in a jam, even when through marriage.
Right.
Because really, a ceremony should be that's all is needed. Your close friends, your family, and a ceremony, and that's your wife.
Yes, and that's the
What
thing.
is the
too,
paperwork
like,
and all that? You know,
and
that's extra.
And that's why, you know, Brother Hondo sought out to really, how would you say, fill the space, fill the vacuum of, you know, what's missing in the space. Is like oftentimes, like I said, we use these titles. We could quote the scriptures, right? We can go to the dictionary. We can go to the etymology, right? But okay, how does this thing look from day to day? You know, what's the practicality of it, right? How can it work in a modern day context? Like, what should it look like? You know, what should be the ins and out? What are the things to make it work? What is the main things to make it get started, right? What's the things to make it get successful, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So, you know, that's really what we really need more of. Like, we already got the revelation, you know, but
for sure,
right? We already got the revelation that it's okay in the eyes of the Most High, right? He created it
exactly
for marriage. He created it for us. Now, how do we walk in this modern day context? Like, that's the most important.
And correct. And the key part, what you said there, Brother Mike, is the part where you say, the Creator has already blessed us with that. That is okay. So once He blesses with that, everything else is the argument, and even trying to prove that, I think, is really, we're wasting our time with that. To be honest, you don't need to debate it, defend it, or anything. It is what it is. He said it. That's done.
And now, it was something else that Brother Hondo said last week is interesting. He's talking to us at the same time in the chat. He says ceremony acts as a space for the law of witness to take effect. Right? True.
Right.
He says, but it is not necessary to enact the marriage.
Oh,
exactly. Right.
All you really need is just the father to give over.
Bro, Babe Bonds. Yes. Shalom, Brother Babe Bonds. Blessings to you, man. Good to see you. Thank you for being again here with us, Op. Yes, but yeah, it's so it you know, something else that Hondo said too on this point is that, and I just lost my train of thought when I went to his comments, that it'll come back to me. but yeah, this is really good, man. This is really good. We definitely need to recognize that polygyny is more than just viable. It is something that we can just literally put into practice. All we have to do is just have the willingness, and just, you know, execute the principles. You know, we don't have to reinvent. That's why when Hondo talked in the very beginning, he talked about being a part of a community. You know why? Because the community ties you into a system that has already existed. Each man may tailor it differently in terms of his own household, but at the end of the day, it's a concept that goes all the way back from the beginning. You know, and so you know, look at it as building family. Look at it as, you know, building kingdom, right? And just walk in it for sure. Yeah. So anybody else was going to say anything on that? You, Jeremy, you were going to say something?
I agree. You walk in it, but what I love about Brother Hondo specifically, and the information that's coming out now, and even Brother Pete with the Headship, Leadership, and Authority book, we have to get the foundation as men. You know, we form that foundation and that rock that, you know, the house and the kingdom is built on.
Right.
So that has to come first, guys. You know, we can't just be out here just slanging in women and then just saying I'm a polygynist. No.
Right.
You gotta have that network.
No code.
Just as both these guys talked about.
Right. With no code, no right.
Yeah. And what that does is that forms a protection not only for your women, not to be out here sleeping around or getting involved with other men, because again, just as Brother Hondo said, that brings diseases into the house.
Right. So if a good man leaves an inheritance for his grandchildren, right? It lets us know something about the mind of Abba, is that he is intentional and he is mindful of the little ones, of the progeny, of the future, those who will succeed us, right? He's mindful of them, right? So, if he is thoughtful that, or if he wants and desires that a good man will establish a foundation. I mean, just think at the beginning, right? Everything was created before the woman came on the scene, and to include the man. So everything that she needed as a dependent was already there. And so that's the environment that we need to be mindful to create, is an environment that, is intentional about making sure, ensuring that our women and our children don't have needs. Even and we talked about and Hondo talked about that last week, even in talking about trusts, what happens when we as men pass away and we leave our family behind? Like, what type of security do we provide for them? Right. In our departure, like what do we provide for them? And so we have to be intentional about these things, because it is our responsibility to create an environment where they do not lack, where they do not want. This is the reason why men go to war, is to create environments that are secure. Men build infrastructure to create environments that are supply a space and a place where women and children are not in want. They're not hungry. They're not cold, right? They can feel comfortable in the heat because they got AC, right? They can sit back and lay back and relax, when they're tired and they did all of their work and chores, and they can watch a television screen, read a book under a light, right? Because we built that infrastructure for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What came to me when both you and Jeremy was mentioning is order. Key to everything is order. The Lord doesn't work in confusion of things, and structure, like like an architect or a civil engineer. If we don't build that bridge the proper way, it's definitely not going to sustain anything. It's going to definitely crack.
Exactly.
And when you also build that structure on the building, you have to provide a maintenance or constant, little tweaks to it, but nothing major for it to actually crumble.
Right.
So a lot of that came to my head when you guys were talking there. So I appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Be the glory, man. Y'all be the glory. Sister Deborah said, "Can we get an anchor, Brother Hondo? I had some questions about this topic about concubines." Well, I don't know what Brother Hondo's doing. I know he's working over these days, as he mentioned to us when he was with us the last time. So I don't know. If he could get on, just let me know, Brother Hondo. I'll definitely send you the link. You can get on the panel. You can jump on and get in on this topic. Yeah. I'm assuming she is inquiring or asking if you can be available to engage in this conversation and answer questions. She says she has specific questions. I know she has some questions from, the women that she worked with, and in her counseling and therapy groups. So he said he'll come on the show. All right, cool. Brother Jay, could you send him the link? Get text it to him. Get texted to him. Yeah. Brother Big Bonds, it's critical for men to train their sons and nephews to build understanding before these young men seek Isha or concubines. Yeah, it's true. Listen, I said it before and I'm gonna say it again. Yo, when you look at a Brother Pete, you look at an elder or Pastor Rufus, right? These are men that I know that walk and display the blueprint in the way that it's supposed to be. Listen, when I decided to pull the trigger and step into polygyny, and take on an additional wife after being married with my wife for say 20, 21 years, right? I was a Christian pastor. I had no community that could counsel me or that I can speak to in reference to polygyny. I still had Western Christians thinking, right? And I made a whole lot of mistakes. And then the result is that it blew up. And for the years to follow, my life existed and contained a lot of misery, pain and suffering, right? And so that is the result of brothers stepping out, sons and nephews, as you talked about, Brother Barnes, without understanding. And that's why it's so important to have it built in them before they endeavor to step into this realm of marriage and adding and taking on additional wives. Because one thing about polygyny is that it's like a magnifying glass. It exposes, it's like winning the lottery in a certain sense. Like, you ever see like the people that win the lottery and they never had money before in their life, and they come into this money, or they get left an insurance policy, claim a check, and they've never had money before in their life, and all of their weaknesses are thus amplified as a result, and they end up probably financially worse than what they were before they got the money, because they made all kinds of stupid decisions. You see this with the rappers and the athletes and so forth, not because they haven't been prepared. Nobody built the understanding within them, as you talked about, Brother Barnes. And so as a result, when they step into polygyny, they step into a work, because it requires responsibility. It requires wisdom. It requires emotional intelligence, because you are so tempted to make emotional decisions. In the process, you're going to be tested. You're going to be challenged by your thoughts, by your women, by other people, right? You're going to be challenged. So what are you going to do when temptation come knocking at your door? Will you be ready? You step into this round, you want to get into this ring, right? So you got to be prepared for it. And we have a lot of head knowledge. We know the scriptures, we can quote, but the reality is are we prepared? Are we being prepared? And this is Brother Hondo. Shalom, brother. Blessings.
Shalom, y'all.
Shalom, brother. Shalom.
Brother Hondo.
Good
Shalom. For 2 weeks, man.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row, man. Yo, what do we this privilege? What do we this privilege, man?
Right.
I just happened to I was actually checking the reviews for the interview, and I saw that you had another one coming on, so I hit the notification. But I was here at 8, but I think y'all came on maybe a few minutes after.
Yeah, we do 9 o'clock. Last week was a special.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we normally do 9 o'clock. So we, whenever we do interviews, when we have a high profile, we push it to 8, because it's more than likely it's going to be longer. And last week we was at college. We was in the
right.
we was in the college.
We were in the college course. We were in the
college course, right?
Well, you know what, y'all? I think it's because I'm actually traveling, so I'm on Central Time right now. Right. So the schedule said 8 o'clock. That was Central Time.
Okay. Yeah, that would
be Central Time. So it was 9 o'clock. So when I came back on, I was like, "Oh, the show's on." So I decided to come in and visit.
Yes.
So. But thanks for having me on again. I appreciate y'all. It's good to see everybody.
Anytime, brother. Anytime, man. Yo, this is for us, man. This is for biblical masculinity. This is for patriarchy. This is for polygyny. We talk about this every Monday night, right? Every Monday.
I see Brother Manolo in here too. But I don't.
Yeah. Our key in the building.
We definitely lucky tonight, man. We're definitely lucky tonight. Glad seeing all you brothers on the panel, man.
Yeah.
He's a Sister Deborah too. My apologies.
Calling Brother Hondo out.
Right. I was feeling it. I was like, okay, I need to come on.
Start mess, Sister D. Start mess, sis.
Start mess with the professor here.
No, it's a good topic though. Concubinage. I think really the confusion. It was interesting about concubines because a lot of people who don't accept polygamy as, say, the high-ranking wives, you know, the man that did, they'll accept, because you can easily insert concubine into a more urban and modern environment. A lot of people who don't accept the traditional model, they'll accept concubinage.
Right.
That's just kind of my experience, because they're like, oh, you mean there's still a system? I can just, the women are like, oh, I can still be like a man's girlfriend, or I can be an older woman and have like a slightly younger man or even older man who doesn't necessarily want to be married, but he can give me oversight, he can give me wisdom, and there may be some admiration there. So concubinage is interesting like that. Plus, depending on the culture that you're discussing or that you're practicing, concubinage is going to be defined differently. There's like a general nomenclature for concubinage, and then there's, okay, but what is a Hebrew concubine? Because a Hebrew concubine is literally just a young servant girl. She just lives in the house with the family, and she can also become like a junior wife to the main wife. That's actually what a Hebrew concubine is. Very simple. A lot of people try to, you know, we go through these theological hermeneutics it's very simple. Traditionally, she was just a young servant girl who, in many cases, not all the time, wasn't necessary, will become like a junior wife to the primary wife. But aside from that, if you're just talking about, you know, you a cat from, you know, Brooklyn, or you living in Miami, concubines, you're just a woman you're not married to, and she's better than a girlfriend. You know, just to keep it street level. I mean, without getting deep, you know,
in the modern day context.
Correct.
So let's rip into it before the professor start revealing everything before we get to our slides. Let the cat out the bag. Let the cat out the bag. Yeah. So, all right. So tonight's topic, right? So as we know, we already figured it out, is on she's a concubine at best. And you know, this topic is somewhat inspired by, you know, the late great Kevin Samuels, who his breakout live stream was on a show titled "Your Average at Best," and that's kind of like spawned, you know, the idea of this particular title, because, you know, we live in a day where a lot of women, you know, consider themselves wifey material, right? They want to be wives, they want a husband, you know, they'll even go as far as to say they want a quote unquote biblical husband. But to really consider the biblical Hebrew definition of what a husband is, the etymology of the word, even the English word husband, right? That's often not taken into consideration. You know, what goes into that, or what's poured into that, is the modern day context, right? Or concept. So a lot of women, you know, deem that they're wife material, they're wife ready. They ready to be wifed up. They, you know, they want somebody to scoop them up. They're, you know, but at the same token, you know, the question still remains, are they wife material? And so tonight's topic is just simply titled, "She's a concubine at best." So we're going to dig into a concubine, as you know, we got a preview introduction, you know, by our dear brother Hondo here. But before we dig into it, as a reminder, you're watching this content, you're watching this live stream for the first time here on Masculinity Monday on Digging in the Word with Mike Allen and friends. Mike Allen, these are my friends, these are my brothers right here on the panel. You like it, do like it. If you haven't subscribed, and you know, if you feel led to be subscribed to subscribe to the channel, definitely hit the subscription button, click the notification so you can receive future content as we upload, and follow along even when we put out the contents. Like Masculinity Monday is generally a regularly scheduled show that we do here at 9 p.m. right, unless if we notify otherwise. For some exception, like having a guest on in an interview, it might be at a different time. And comment, but we do ask, if you comment, you know, you can comment, you know, with a question. You can make a statement. You can disagree. You can agree. But the thing that we ask is that you be respectful, right? because one of the main purpose for engaging with the audience in this regard is it helps with the algorithm. It helps other people to be exposed to this content. So when they type in those keywords, then the video pops up to the top, right, of the search, and they'll be able to find this video. So, and the other thing is share it. Don't keep that love to yourself. If you're blessed by what we talk about here tonight, you learn something, you get some value out of what we talk about here tonight. Certainly don't keep that love to yourself. I'm sure that there's some other brothers that you know will benefit from what we're talking about here tonight, and share the stream, share the link, with them. And definitely you can watch the playback as well. That's as many times as you'd like. Study it, right? if you're getting that much out of it, right? So we will start off with our first questions, but we got 3 more comments, Brother Jay. All right, who is that?
Sure.
Right.
So we got the first one, Sister Deborah. She's talking about better than a girlfriend in what ways? I'm assuming that's from a comment one of you guys made a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it's better than the girlfriend. Yeah, well, we'll get into that part because that's part of right. And Brother Tony, shalom,
shalom, Brother Tony.
Blessings, Brother Tony.
Shalom, Brother Tony.
West Side, right?
Right. We got Brother Hondo replying to Tony here.
Yeah, Brother Tony and
MF.
MF.
Why do these concubines believe that they deserve to be treated the same as a that's kind of a weird statement, but that's okay.
A woman. Okay, so all right, so we can tell that someone has the perspective of looking at a concubine as something in a negative, with a negative connotation, right? Or understanding. Okay, good, very good. So the first question, brothers, what is a concubine? So now's the time we can all define it. We could use scripture. If you got a scripture that comes to mind, if you want to define a concubine. What is a concubine? And for those of you who are in the audience, in the chat room, definitely, what is a concubine? We're talking about it tonight, so we might as well define it. What is a concubine?
Right. So a concubine, from my understanding, is someone who is lower than a wife. They're not the level of a wife, they're a little bit lower than a wife.
Okay. All right. So when you say lower, what do you mean when you say lower?
Lower
or lower in what?
Lower as far as status goes. So when I think of concubine, I think of is it Hagar?
Okay.
Sarah's handmaid. That's what I would think about as a concubine.
So technically, what made Hagar lower?
That she was in service to Sarah, and she wasn't necessarily she was given to Abram. She wasn't necessarily handpicked by him, but he took her, and to my understanding, that became her position.
Okay. All right. So we got another comment. MF, he says, concubine is a woman that's just looking to be financially sponsored by a man. She's a comfort wife. All right. What do you guys think about that comment?
Whoever MF is, I don't know what to call yourself MF, but there's that's actually proper depending on, again, the culture perspective you're coming from.
Right.
So it's not necessarily wrong. It's just it just depends on what culture you're coming from. But the first question that MF asked, why do concubines believe they deserve to be treated better than a respectable woman, i.e. a wife? It's very simple. Our modern understanding, and this is most people, whether you live in the East now or the West, it's almost 2025 here, CE, in the common era. The systems are broken. So when you don't have a system in place, family, corporation, military, it can be something impromptu, like, group dynamics, something that just pops up, right? If you don't establish codes of behavior, ethics, morality, then you're going to automatically have confusion after the events in question. So that's why everybody, we all scramble to define a concubine, because most of us did not come up under a system, and not only polygamy, but just period. Because like, for example, in Hebrew, pilgesh refers to the concubine, but it was just a young slave, a young servant girl, not a slave. I want to be clear. And these women, now the way I was trained, remember, I was trained by an elder from Beta Israel and the Yemenite Jews, the oldest Israelites groups, established groups on the planet. And what he taught me was, and this made sense, just biblically and just otherwise, when you understand Eastern cultures, there was no slave being put in the house. They were young servant girls, okay? They would be paid, obviously, they'll be taken care of, and they will be given to assist the wife of the home, okay? Or the primary wife if the man already has other wives, other concubines who became his junior wives. So if the man decided and the woman decided they were going to have sex, because these are young women, clearly she walking around the house, she's serving you, she's serving your wife, she's looking good, she's fresh. You might want to have her as your partner. And if that's the case, because we're dealing with Eastern culture, that man was expected to keep her and maintain her as a wife, even if it's in a junior status. And the status is determined by the fact that he was already married to presumably a woman who's older than the Pilgesh. So in order for them not to play, I guess, in modern nomenclature, smash and dash, they had codes of conduct. You have to maintain the woman.
Right.
Of course, they're going to, if her parents are somewhere reachable, there's going to be some type of thing where there's accountability being discussed and things like that. That's normal. But when Hagar, for example, in the story where she was removed from the home, most of the time is preached is that like she was, I guess, divorced. A lot of preachers will dare say it and say she was divorced. She wasn't divorced. She was just removed from the house. And that was just to bring down the tension between she and the woman. No man in Hebraic culture was going to kick out a woman and her child and just, okay, you're gone. It's cold outside, whatever. Nobody was doing that. So she was just removed from the home.
Yeah, let me add on that. The other thing too, on that too, if you go to chapter 25, when Abraham dies, Ishmael and Isaac together are there to in terms of dealing with their deceased or dying father.
Yes.
So yeah, so you can see that the relationship still continued. It wasn't severed completely. Right.
Yes. Correct. Absolutely. So there's one reason these codes existed, and I'm trying to give sort of a background to all this, is because those times it was very dangerous. You go outside, you're going to encounter wild beasts that can actually fight you and possibly kill you. Women weren't just going to be going outside talking about, yeah, I'm alone, I don't need a man. No, you're talking about Northeast Africa, Persia. You're not going to just be walking across 200-300 kilometers of square kilometers by yourself and you're safe. You're not going to do that. So these things had to be in place. And the men also had accountability. So by him eventually sleeping with Hagar, and they created, at least one child, then he's going to have to maintain her. So the Pilgesh was simply a young female servant who was Hebrew. MF, who I don't know if you're a man or a woman, but regarding your question about why do concubines believe they deserve to be treated as respectable women, well, that's because, first of all, in Western culture, the jealousy factor comes in. Remember, you got to remember that polygamy was not promoted because of enslavement, and then that started trickling down. But it was still known that wealthy men had a so-called mistress, when mistress is also misdefined, because a mistress is the lady master of the house. It's just the wife. See, that's the lead wife. That's the head or principal wife. It actually is not, a woman that he's so-called cheating with. But nevertheless, just from a Western perspective, a concubine really in Western culture is not defined properly. Okay. So if a man has a girlfriend, like, they call it a girlfriend, I choose consort, my brother Maad El, who he hasn't come on these programs, but I knew what a consort was, but I never thought about using them in modern times. But he convinced me to start using it back in 2011. So since then, I've been using the term. But a consort is a woman who's aligned with your purpose and your goals. That's why, to Sister Deborah's question, that's why I say is better than a girlfriend. Even a concubine is better than a girlfriend because she's actually serving you. Like her whole purpose for being there is to serve you and or members of your household. Okay, girlfriend, that's the girl, you know, you sleep with, you date. She might come over, she might stay with you. You know, it's all over the place. There's no accountability. You may know her parents or you may not. So it loses context. That's why names are important, because names give you titles and titles give you purpose. It always has a purpose in front of you. That's why we call each other brother. We call each other sister. It makes you treat the other person differently. Okay.
Right, that title. Yeah.
Because the vibration is coming. So you have to have a title. A pilgesh is simply a role within a Hebrew man's household. Remember that. In modern times, a concubine is a woman who is not your wife, but she's there generally for sexual purposes. Because, you know, if you have that strong of an attraction to a woman, you still have to maintain her some type of way. So that's why we use the word concubine. So the confusion is coming because in the West specifically, we no longer have systems in place to make sure the men are prepared. As you all were talking earlier, Brother Bate Barnes mentioned it, and Brother Mike, you were expounding on that, and that was excellent commentary about both of y'all. You have to have those things in place in order to keep everybody in check, because if men's power goes unchecked, you get war, you get murder, you get theft, things like that. When women's power goes unchecked, you start the spread of disease, because it's really women who are the repositories of sexual illnesses most of the time, because of the, you know, their vaginas are damp, and they stay damp because they're enclosed. Okay, it's more easily passes to the next person. But that's why sexual cleanliness is also important. But nevertheless, women's power unchecked means that there will be rampant and aberrant sexual activity, because men can't get sex anyway from no woman unless the women say yes. They have to actually tell some man somewhere yes.
Right. Or take it. Or he takes it.
Right. But I'm just saying for the majority.
That's why we have a social construct. Right. So, yeah. Right.
Correct. Right. So that's just a little bit of it. I don't want, I mean, this I could go on, but you know, that's just the general outline of what a concubine means.
Something you said there too. So a few things that you said there too that made me think of also, you know, again, and you kind of alluded to this and you mentioned it as well, the benefit that it does for a woman being a concubine. You know, she, think about it. He gets the benefit of sex, but she gets the benefit of being protected, covered, provided for, right?
Correct.
A part of his family, right? So she belongs. And that's very important for women. I think Sister Deborah can definitely vouch for that. Is it important for a woman, Sister Deborah, to feel belonged? Right? How important, how significant is that? Right?
Yeah, and plus, you know, most of the women demanding that they want to be a wife, you have to have qualifications to be a husband and to be a wife. Mm-hmm. People have to qualify you. Now, you can't just raise up and say, man, I'll make a great husband. Right. Well, who says?
Says so. Based on what?
Who says? Yeah. Did her family approve of you? No? Okay, well, you ain't marrying her. Right. Okay, unless you want to get hurt. Some families, like when I go to the Philippines, you know, it's very tribal. It's still very tribal there. People will chase you. You will get hunted there. I've heard the stories. I've had people tell me that the reason they didn't mess with me when I was there was because I came there honorably, and I went way up into the mountains. I'm talking about thousands of feet up in the air in the mountains to go talk with, you know, my women's families. And they were like, okay, so you ain't here just to, you know, smash and dash. Okay, we're going to listen to you. Right. And that's why I was protected everywhere I went to.
Right.
So the concubines are generally women who have been married before, or they're either divorced or they're widows, or they already have children, or they're in some less than ideal scenario. This is, again, the modern understanding of what it is.
When you say ideal, Hondo, what do you say ideal to what?
Oh, in other words, vis-a-vis, she's not a virgin. She might be older. For example, you know, generally the ideal placement, and I teach 18 to 25, a woman should already be married, period. Or she should be part of a household, something. It has to be something where she has a master, or something where she's arranged to be married, because that way she can lock into a system. And she can roll with that system. It takes time to get to know people, even within the traditional household. It takes time to know everybody's quirks and how they move, their habits, and that helps you over time to operate more smoothly as a family. So so you need qualifications as a man. You have to. I believe it was Brother Bate Barnes. He said you have to have resources.
Yeah.
You have to know how to procure and maintain friendships, alliances, and then not only those human resources, but also material resources or capital. You need to know how to do that. And if you look at all the patriarchs, all of the patriarchs were wealthy men. All of them.
Yes.
All of them.
Yes.
You look at how much they were traveling. Travel takes a lot. I mean, I've seen 49 out of 50 states by land. I've seen it. I've seen almost every back road and street and county road, state road you can see in the United States. And it takes a lot of money for you to travel. So those men couldn't be traversing on foot, horseback, and by mule unless they had resources to purchase even along the way. So that's what I'm saying. Hopefully that helps people understand kind of biblically and then from a modern cultural perspective.
Right. It's just Sister Jen Moore, she just came on. She said something real interesting. I think we can definitely park on this. She said the wife of a man's youth probably wouldn't have been a concubine first. Now, we talked about earlier that she could be a maiden, right? So she could be a young girl who her father sold her into slavery, right? Or she could have been a captive she could be a war captive, right? And ended up being sold, into slavery and then thus become a concubine, right? What do you guys say on that?
Y'all want to go first?
Yeah.
As far as her being sold,
in other words, does she have to necessarily come by? In other words, her statement is that the wife of a man's youth, right, probably wouldn't have been a concubine first. So in other words, the status of marriage for a wife of a man's youth would not come by way of concubinage. She would be a covenant full-fledged wife. That she's making. But is that necessarily so if this man was a slave and she was a slave, right? And so they both had an obligation other than to each other, right? Or this woman became the wife of a man who he has this servant woman and he decides to take her for himself as a wife. We see that in Exodus 21, right?
Yeah.
Necessary, because it could be that this would be the very first woman that he takes, and this could be her very first how would you say experience of being quote unquote what's called marriage. What do you guys say on that?
Yeah, it definitely could be her first experience. I want to kind of tell a story. I had a friend in 2016 I met in Fort Worth, Texas. He was an Indian guy. His parents were traditionally from Indian. Like even his dad was a doctor back home. They had this huge house, but they came here to America because he moved his practice international, but still, did some work back in India. So they had money. So they did the traditional route as far as promising him a wife. He was one of his sons. They had set up an arranged marriage, but by the time like my friend, he had got to America, he didn't want this woman. He wanted free will and free choice. And one of the things,
traditions.
Yeah, he wanted to break traditions. But one of the things I told him was that, you want to get out here and get one of these women that's been ran through with the possibility of a disease, and your wife has chosen a woman with the family because back in India, they marry because of social class. So by him joining with this woman and then two families coming together, it would raise her family social class, but it would also add to his network. So that's why he had arranged for his son to do that. But
wasn't that like really what happened with hey, matter of fact, I want to pull it up, but we can get when we get into the scripture. I wanted to pull that up. Remind me to bring the point of Hagar becoming Abraham's concubine, how her status was raised.
Right. Okay.
How she was elevated in this process. Yeah, so remind me to touch on that when we talk about scriptures. I don't want to divert from You know, anything? Anybody else want to add on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer or respond to Brother Bay Barnes said. The assumption is the young man is covenanted with a virgin, with a concubine or not. Well, historically, in Hebrew culture, men, especially the first woman that he has, she's going to be a virgin. That was expected. We can't implant say, we from Omaha, Nebraska, and we taking on a woman who's had a low body count. We call it a low body count. And we gonna take her on. They didn't. That was shameful. That's shameful in traditional Israelite culture for a woman to not be a virgin unless she was a widow. Like there was absolutely no shame in taking on a woman who was a widow. But even she was generally not going to be his first wife because you always want to plant seed in fresh ground. Okay. Right. And you really, when you talk about marriage, you can start getting into farming and talk about how the female psyche and form are analogous to land. Okay. Mm-hmm. And this is one reason why, in cosmology, generally, like, for example, you hear this thing, Mother Earth, Heavenly Father, things like that. There's a reason why the female is considered analogous to land. But no, historically, we didn't just up and marry. We didn't do it how we do now. Like, it's like, okay, I'll take on a woman. She's 33. She had slept with 2 men. She might have a kid. And we just
the standard has been lowered.
Oh, yeah.
The standards have been lowered. Yeah.
Because there was such shame associated, because what would happen is when the families come together, or the man sends his servant or he sends his son to go represent him and start asking questions about the girl's history, and the family's like, yeah, just think about this. We're sitting in, we're sitting somewhere, near Jericho. And we're talking with the family. The family's like, well, yeah, she's had four men. She's been with 4 men.
That's all.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, we didn't talk like that back then. And I'm telling you, like, I've gotten these oral histories from people who live in Eritrea, like their actual bloodline. They ain't trying to guess and figure out if they're actually bloodline, and they passed on those traditions. You go to Yemenite culture, they're gonna tell you the same thing. That's something I've studied when it comes to Israelite culture. I always talk to the people who live in the lands.
Yeah.
That way I don't have to guess. Yeah. And even to this day, if you go invade Israel and you try to marry a woman, you can actually tell them, I only want a virgin woman. And they're going to look for you a virgin woman. Like I'm saying, if they've already accepted you as coming into their culture like that.
Culture is honorable like that.
It's still like that. It's still like that, even in Ethiopia, because they're the same people. They just had a civil war. They had a civil war several hundred years ago that ended up them splitting into 2 different nations. But the
other thing that's, we've lost touch with in our modern culture is the value on paying for the price for a virgin.
Yeah, the bride price.
Like the bride price, like just to think of the equivalence of several $100,000, for a virgin.
Yeah, why would I pay for that? Why would I pay?
We can't even see that. That concept can't even wrap around our mind.
Why would I pay for a bride price for a non-virgin? And a lot of African brothers and sisters be trying to run a game like that on Western brothers. That's something we got to watch out for too. This is why you have to really understand the culture of the woman that you're seeking, because a lot of this across continental Africa, this happened to me 2 or 3 times where they tried to get me to marry one of their relatives, and they're like, yeah, we want a bride price of this and that. I said, is she a virgin? And they said, no. I was like, no deal. I just said it straight up. And that was when I was single. So I wasn't desperate. I was like, we're not going to do that.
Right.
Now you may, out of mercy, say, you know what, this woman has these set of skills, and that's the only daughter you have, only child you have. I may give you something, but that's something you should bring up. But yeah, so the pilgashim, or the concubines in Israelite culture, if they were remember, not a slave, not a Hebrew slave, because we couldn't enslave our own.
Right.
But if we got a Hebrew servant, she was generally a young girl. She wasn't married before. She was coming in, and again, young girls who had never been married were generally, with few exceptions, virgins. That's just the culture. That's just how the culture was, and it still is in certain parts of the world. So just throw some more light on that.
Right. Yeah. Sister Deborah has a question, I think, in Twisted It. She says, what is the difference between fornicating and a non-wife concubine? Well, yeah. Okay. What is the difference between fornicating and a non-wife concubine?
I think Brother Hondo touched on it earlier when he mentioned a girlfriend, as far as like the Western thought of it. You know, you have a girlfriend, and you know, you just kind of mess with her from time to time, sleep with her from time to time. She may come over, she may not. So I think that, you know, that kind of sets the standard for fornicating. So you guys have this agreement that you're not together, but y'all are doing a do occasionally.
Okay. Okay.
Well, when you mean I said that, Brother Jeremy?
Yeah, but I think you're using that. You using that as an example of something else.
Yeah. I was saying like they're in a relationship, but because again we live
That's what we
in
call it.
an urban environment, she may not live with you. She may have her own place or what have you. Not that y'all not in a relationship. That's clearly some type of relationship you got.
Oh yeah.
And
You're
it's
dealing with
a
her.
committed expectation too.
Yeah.
My apologies then. My apologies.
I didn't explain it very well. It's my fault. So, yeah.
It's committed expectation. Brother Barnes to that says he's fornication is debauched sexual acts, not intercourse with the woman. Yeah, that is true. It's the whole intent, the whole reason of why you're doing it, right? Right. As opposed to forming a union or marriage, right? The intent is different, right? So if a man lays with a prostitute, his intentions for that prostitute is different from his intentions for this virgin that he just paid several $100,000 for, right?
But
and he's going to live his life with her, right?
The vagina was made to be penetrated.
Right?
The butthole was not. So I want to add that there. You know, some people out here doing these depraved things. That's what the vagina was made for. That's where you penetrate it.
Right. All right. So she says, so is what you're saying is a non-virgin is average at best? Sister D's on fire.
I would. I mean,
a
she's been around the block.
A non-virgin is average at best. Well, let's let the panel answer that question. Would you guys say that a non-virgin, right, is average at best? Is that average in our society today? I think we kind of alluded to something like that, right? Is the reality of women being non-virgins in our society today? I'm gonna get somebody, Brother D. The reality or the status of or the demographics of women that are non-virgins in our culture today here in the States, in the United States, is that an average thing? Is that a normal thing? Would you say?
Think it's a general thing that is hard to find a woman virgin nowadays, being that women actually start to have intimacy with men at an early age very soon. So it's not an impossible thing to find, but it's definitely a tough thing to find.
Very rare.
But I just want to cover the one thing from Brother MF when he mentioned about not respectable. I think when you placed a woman under you consider or put her under your covering, you cannot put her as not respectable because you actually you put her under your covering. For example, you would either let's say if it's the woman has a child, she has a tattoo, or she have made mistakes in the past, and she has a sincerity of change or of change of heart, and she shows an understanding that she was wrong in the past and makes that change. And you see those changes within her, you know, like our Brother German will say, if you have her under your covering, it's hard to not, how are you going to call her not respectable? She should be respectable because you, the man, is who add new respect to her by bringing her under your covering. So I would disagree with that comment with Brother MF when he mentioned that.
That's a good point. So repentance is respectful.
Correct. Because of the Lord can forgive some of us what we're not in the right path when we were just on this journey through life.
Hey,
we should also be available to do the same also.
Hey, Jesus' foremother was a prostitute, right? Right.
So you got to take that in consideration. I cannot say she's not respectable. If she's under my kingdom, under my care, under my covering, she is a respectable woman. Maybe she was not. But I into the help of the Lord has helped her wash away that. And now she has become a respectable woman because she's under my care.
Right. Okay. All right. Brother Bay said, as long as the woman does not belong to another man, however, it becomes complicated historically when the master of the house gives a manservant a woman. Yeah, it does. It does. It does. Because again, but again, that's the reason why a system in place is so important. And things are not done outside of a system, because when it's kind of like you get a contractor to come work at your home and to do a significant job, like put a deck in place and do some plumbing, and you don't put anything in writing. Everything is based on your word and the other person's word. And if you don't have things in a clear, concise agreement where there's mutual understanding, then it leaves room for misunderstanding, right? And oftentimes that happens, right? So that's why a system is so important, because it helps to keep boundaries and keep things clear.
Yep, that's what a contract
alleviates confusion.
Yep.
Yeah, confusion, because confusion will cause great problems, right? Wars, right?
But brother Mike and brother Jeremy, I like to respond or answer Sister Deborah's question. If y'all have time.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Regarding her asking, is a non-virgin average at best? We don't use those terms in the culture. Is she average at best? A woman, you have to take a woman as what she is and has to offer. And we can't always, the whole average at best thing was the late brother Kevin Sam was taking a dig at that particular woman. But in the culture, we don't refer to women like that, because even if a woman has been under certain circumstances that were not her fault, for example, she's a widow, or if she was abandoned, that's not her fault. Okay, right. We can't place her. We cannot place her under that type of scrutiny.
Common.
What's that?
Common, because average, when you call someone average, you're calling them common,
everyday, normal,
right? Everyday.
Correct. Correct. And we don't want to take a secular dig at a particular woman at a certain point in time by someone who's not part of this traditional
makes sense
culture we're trying to restore, and then place it upon women that we potentially may take on as a consort or a wife. So it's a thing where even in our speech patterns, when we're talking about each other as men and women, we have to be very honorable in the way we approach it, and take it with a large grain of maturity, if that makes sense. So I would say the flat answer, Sister Deborah, is no. I would never refer to a woman as that. Now, if she's a secular woman and she all out here, she's public property, then I'm gonna have to dig into her a little bit, because she has to understand that, she has to come up, and this is all women, because as men, we're supposed to show them the standard. They have to come up to our standard. Okay. And whatever that may be, because, for example, Brother Jeremy is going to have a different standard than myself, and Brother Mike, he's going to have different parameters for his home, his household, as the other brothers who are here on the panel and in the chat room here. So, Sister Deborah, hopefully that answers your question as well. I mean, from my end anyway, because I know we're all giving our perspective, but from my end, I will say no. I would never refer to a sister in who is cultured as average at best. I wouldn't dig into her like that, especially if she's asking me seriously about, am I going to take her on? I would never tell her that.
Right. Yeah. And the title is, she's a concubine at best, not average at best. There is a difference.
So does she have what it takes to be that, to achieve that top wife level? Top shelf?
But bro, getting you're gonna say?
I just wanted to tell a quick story right quick about this, the whole concubinage thing. So I was traveling, this was years ago, and I was out in Portland, Oregon. Okay, there was this woman was ethnically mixed. Okay, and she was black and white. I mean, she was absolutely stunning, gorgeous. She was cultured, Rasta, Hebrew. She was all on that vibe, right? So she had a business that was international. She had some type of clothing business, and she sold clothing between here and I believe in Senegal, if I'm not mistaken. So she would travel, and she would be overseas for, I believe, 4 or 5 months out of the year. She would return to Portland. Anyway, we hadn't talked in a while, so I didn't know she had a man at this point until we got on the phone. And long story short, she had this brother who I believe he was Senegalese or Nigerian. And this man was working in the United States, and she was taking care of his child, like literally babysitting like his child. And then she had a daughter. Okay. And she had all these skills. She was nice. She understood polygamy. She was down for that. But I remember she was one of those women. She's so beautiful and so intelligent. She thought she was too good to be a concubine. So she didn't like me using that word. She saw me back then on social media using this term. She said on the phone, quote verbatim, Hondo, I'm no man's concubine. That's actually the name of a chapter I have in Polygamy as Economic Warfare in the next book that brother SWR asked about, which is going to debut February 2025. But I told her that on the phone. I said, let me tell you something, sister. I was like, you're not a virgin, are you? I mean, I knew the answer, but I wanted to come out of her mouth. Right. She said, no, what do you mean? No, of course I'm not virgin. I said, right, because you have a child. She said, of course. I said, so let me get this straight. You dealing with an African brother. First of all, African brothers who date or have sex with women outside of their tribe, you're a concubine. You better believe that. First of all, don't ever try to make yourself something else. It's like I thought you knew the culture. I'm taking a dig at her at this point. I said, second thing is, this brother's from West Africa. All the West African countries, those brothers are very aggressive when it comes to putting you in a particular place. Don't you take care of his child while he at work? She said, yeah. So you taking care of this man's child. You're a concubine. I said, you cooking this man's meal and you're having sexual relations with this man. She said, yeah, well, of course. I said, okay, then you're a concubine. Has he married you? She said, of course not. That's why we're having this conversation. I said, okay, then you're not a wife, which means you're a concubine.
Right.
You may call him you may call yourself his girlfriend, which I don't understand because you live in Portland. Okay. We ain't living in Senegal right now.
Right.
But I had to correct her and make sure she understood where she was based on her actions, not based on theory. This is just her actions. I said, if that man did not marry you, well, he already has a wife, and I think he had 2 or 3 other children in Africa, in West Africa. I said, so you are a concubine. So you just actually proved my point. And I mean, I was laughing on the phone, and she wasn't angry with me, but she was like, okay. She was like, I see your point. I was like, yeah, just don't be trying to boost yourself in the rankings and raise your stock. We ain't doing that.
But she knew the truth anyway. She knew she knew who she was.
She knew.
Yeah, I have a friend. Speaking of stories, I have a friend. She's a professional in business, finance. And, I've had conversation with her several years, and the term concubine came up. And when she heard it, she thought she had like the look and the thought of disgust, right? Like she reacted to it in a negative way, right? We had a conversation probably about, say, 5 months ago about a concubine, but I purposefully didn't use the word concubine. And in the conversation, I said to her, what if because we'll talk about polygamy a lot. And she has her reservations about it. So in this particular conversation, I asked her, I said, okay, you're a professional. You do business, you have a responsibility, you have a family, you have children, you own your own home, you have your own car, you pay for your own vacations, right? You have a lot of obligations, right? What would it be, or could you see yourself in a relationship with someone where the main part of your relationship is sexual, but you couldn't fulfill all of the duties of being a wife? Could you see yourself doing that? Because you got your obligation to your children, you got your obligation to your career, you got your obligation, right? So you have all these obligations prior to getting involved or yoking up with any man, right? Could you see yourself? Oh, she said, oh, I could do that. She said, not give up my career, not give up, because I'm gonna put my children first, not do. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm like, I said, well, you know the name of it in scripture, or will we transliterate it into English? You know what it's called? She said, what? I said, it's called a concubine. She said, so, but you know, when it's explained in terms of, you know, in a modern day context or in a modern way of, I mean, a lot of women fit into this category.
Yeah, when you move it away from that negative connotation, then they can
Negative
actually see.
connotations, and it kind of touches on something what Brother Hondo was talking about last week, really focusing more on, you know, what polygyny can do for a woman rather than trying to convince her biblically, well, the Bible says this and the scripture says that and stuff and so forth. When you start talking about real life, how it's going to benefit her, how's it going to benefit her family, how's it going to, you know, protect her, how's it going to protect her children if she has children, right? You know, when you start bringing it into the benefits and you start bringing it into how it becomes into the practical, it begins to make more sense, because they're not going to look at this from a logical perspective. They're going to look at this like, you know, how is it going to make them feel? You know, how secure are they going to feel, right? How is it going to make them look, right? That's what they're going to think of, right?
Even more than that, brother Mike. And that's all 110% facts you spitting, you know. And I think with men on our end, you know, I'm not putting anything on the women when I say this. Our problem as men is twofold. One, we're not even doing, like, they don't see it enough in front of their face, like dudes out with 2 or 3 of their women. Like they don't see that enough. They don't see their women garbed up, looking nice, smelling good, smelling like cocoa butter, shea butter, you know, and oh, they happy, the children. They don't see it enough. Number two is men don't yet, and this again, the purpose of my upcoming work, I'm trying to get a lexicon whereby we can start speaking the same language when it comes to polygamy. So we're not articulating it properly when we do discuss it in public circles. So those are the two issues that are happening. And these are two very, very important issues. We need to have the same language. And firstly, we need to be doing it. Like they actually need to see it. I'll give you an example. So the brother Che, who was in the room, the room was, you know, one of my good brothers. I remember, so he and I both have Filipino consorts, okay? And last time he went, and this is recently, he had 2 of his women out with him, okay? They went to the mall, went to the swimming pool, they had the hotel, they went to his because he owned, you know, he had his own place. So everybody sees them out together. And Filipino culture, they like, wait a minute, bro, these your women? And they would answer for him. The brother stood out because he's tall, you know. He stood out more than everybody, and he didn't even have to speak. They would be talking to him. His women would speak up for him, and they said, "Oh, no. She's his other girlfriend. I'm his other girlfriend." And everybody was like, "Oh my gosh!" So everywhere he went in the Philippines, people were looking at him like, "Wow, that's amazing." You know, even me, like, you know, my women would get on the video call together because I purposely kept my women apart because the things I wanted to do with them. I was setting it up with my late consort. We were setting this up where we were about to get a compound. So she and I were already searching. We already found a place for us. But then I was going to get a big compound for us. And she said, oh, yeah. She said, we can all help each other. And she would talk on video call with one of my other women. And she was going to meet my other one who I was going to take on. And she was only a couple of kilometers away. So it was all like kind of coming together like that. But all the women knew, oh, Solomon is for real. Like this ain't like no play. He ain't just smashing and dash. He ain't going, because the Philippines has over 7,000 islands. They like, oh, he ain't just out here smashing and dashing on different islands. We can actually see this in real time. Just to give you another example. There was a young lady I was getting to know many years ago. It was about 7-8 years ago. And she came to me one day. She called me in the morning. She used to always call me at 7:30 a.m. every day, her time. And she said, hey, look, she's like, I totally agree with polygamy. She said, and her parents actually got on video. They both told her father and her mother. They said, oh, yeah, as long as you take care of our daughter, she, you know, we're okay. We understand. We know what you bring in. So it's okay. So she told me one day, she said, look, we have 7,000 islands here in the Philippines. It would be great because because she said, how many children do you want? She had asked me the day before how many children I wanted. I said, I want at least 100. She said, really? She said, and how are you going to do that? Very serious question. I already had it mapped out. And when I started articulating it, she sat there for about 30 minutes while I talked. And she said, wow, I've never heard a man talk like that. She said, you know what? Even better, you should have at least one, maybe two women on every island. And then for one whole month, you bring everybody together on one island, and the whole government will shut down the island for you. You got parades. They have a lot of parades in the Philippines. And she sat there and talked to me for 30 minutes and had the plan. She was like, you can invite everybody during 1 month out of the year, and your whole family will come together. And then you have a compound, everybody come to party, we celebrate, and you get the barangay captain to allow you to have a parade, and we'll celebrate. You will celebrate your family. She said, I'm down for that. She said, I think it's a great idea. She said, I'll give you some children too, of course. I was like, well, dang. I mean, you bring more ideas to me.
Notice what happened. Like it kind of like alluded to what I said earlier, what you said basically last week. You gave her the vision, right? She sat down and listened to the vision. Once she got the vision, she was able to expand on it.
Right. Mm-hmm. She can see it. Yeah.
She can see it. So, I mean, she was amped. I mean, y'all, she was amped. She was up there sweeping with them little natural brooms. She was sweeping, had a little hand behind her back like Filipinos do. Sweeping the floor. She's like, yeah. And we can just, but you're going to need a pretty big compound because we're going to need a lot of food. We're going to have to farm. And I mean, this how many hectares we going to need. Yeah. And, oh, look, my family will love that. And her father actually asked me to go to the Philippines quickly and give him some grandchildren.
Wow.
He said, you're a good man. He said, you're not like other foreigners who come here. He said, the fact that you wanted to talk, because most foreigners come here, because she was hot as fire. Okay. She was bad. I'm talking about like 9.9 on the Richter. She was fine. And I'm talking about she was built like a track athlete. Okay. Because she did run track and play volleyball. Remember, she was only 23. So I was like, cool. But by the time I was, just because some people are like, well, why didn't you marry her? So by the time I was going to go there, because I had it mapped out a few months ahead, she had to help her family. So she kind of went to another island. She had to work and things like that. Kind of threw off what I was doing. But she was always down for polygamy. I rarely ever meet women who like me, for example, who aren't down for the program, because my personality is forceful about it. I'm doing it already, and I know how to articulate it. So I don't get a lot of pushback from like my current harem right now. Nobody gives me a hard time about the other women. No, nobody does that.
Yeah, so it's something to be said when someone walks within a facility. It's one thing about like Dr. Umar Johnson. He gets a lot of flack because he talks about this school. And he's been talking about this school since I think like 2012. But a lot of people give him flack because people have donated money over the years. He's been talking about it and still no school. It's like 10 years later, 12 years later, still no school, right? And so he gets a lot of flack. But it's different when you walk into the facility of a school and people can see it. You understand? And they can experience. And that's the difference between the two. That's the difference between. I want to answer this question that we have in our what's the name? I had it up here. Yeah, that's it. Would you guys say women today would rather be a covenanted wife or a concubine, given the fact that now I'm gonna add to this, given the fact that you think about the careers that women have, how much women are working outside of the home, how much women are accustomed to being independent minded. Women may have children, right? Maybe widows, what have you, divorced, right? Versus being a covenant wife. Because when we think of covenant and wife, we thinking of the wife of our youth. We thinking of the woman of scripture that is there to be the helpmeet. She's gonna serve. She's going to be submissive. She's going to, all of the above, right? To support that man's home, build that man's home. She's going to be the Proverbs, like the epitome of it is the Proverbs 31 woman, right? Is the covenanted wife. So Would women today really rather be a covenanted wife, or would you say they would really rather be a concubine if they know what the concubine status really is and what it really allows? What do you
Well,
guys say on that? And if so, why?
just from what you guys have, and the why is because of the examples that that your brothers just gave. It seems like they would be just fine with being a concubine. But for status sake in the West, only in the West,
Status.
they want to be seen as the covenanted wife.
Mm. Mm.
And don't forget, brother Mike, you said that you wanted to dig into how Hagar's status was raised.
Right, her status was raised. Right, right. Yeah, yeah. In fact, they want the status of the covenanted wife so much so that in this modern construct, they wants to be the one and only.
Yeah.
So they want to be beyond the covenanted wife. They want to be the wife that is the one and only.
Until they understand until they understand the definition of a concubine is.
Right.
And then they're like, oh shit, I don't mind being that.
I simply ask a woman when they demand that, I say, if you don't have, because at the end of the day, for a man, ladies, and I know women get offended by this sometimes, but at the end of the day, a man will marry a woman for sex and labor. I know that this is totally controversial, but we want your time. In other words, we want your womb, especially if you're young. We want to have children. That means labor. Okay. That means that you need to take on instructions that we give you to manage time properly, to operate within time, because time and management of that resource are masculine. Okay. That's why you have the term father time. Okay. Women control space, or rather, men control time and space. Women control sound. That's why they use words. They tend to talk more, and men have to channel their words. This is why I'm going to keep saying this is why, because we need to give examples. This is why traditionally men liked women quieter. Not that they can't talk, but when you do talk, it has to be something pointed in a particular direction and within the framework that we have provided in that household. Don't speak frivolously.
Right, focus.
Okay? Don't refer to me as such and such. I'll give you an example. My consorts actually address me by some title, and each one varies. Just depending on her personality. She calls me something different. One of my consorts calls me sir. The other one just calls me babe. But that's because she and I are emotionally closer than the other ones. But the one who is younger, much younger than me by almost 20 years, she calls me sir. And she never calls me by my name. If she refers to me in third person, she says, oh, this is what Sir Hondo wants. See, so when women speak to us, this is why it's so soothing when a woman knows when to talk and in what tone to speak with. She's very comforting. See, I'm telling you, all the guys here, if you have never experienced that, when you get that, oh, you're going to do whatever she wants. And I mean, within reason, but you're going to make sure she has everything she needs. And I've experienced that. I have that now. It's great. It's great. And when you're a hardened man, especially you've experienced combat, when you've built a business, a very thriving business, you're under a lot of pressure. You've taken on a lot of things. You need a woman who knows when to talk, and she speaks little. She speaks very few words. Again, I saw that in my father's side of the family. My mother's side of the family, the women tend to talk a lot. But my father's side of the family, I saw them thrive, and the men were more accomplished. I say, this is an interesting correlation. This is a very interesting correlation. See, so when we start discussing the instruction and the channeling of certain vibrations, women doing that allows us to accomplish more. This is one reason why you'll see some women say, I don't want him to have another wife, especially not 2 other wives and 10 more children, because she knows that his ceiling, his economic ceiling, is only going to go 8 feet tall with her. But if he has 2 more wives, it's going to go 30 feet high. See, she doesn't want that, because she knows the more a man becomes accomplished, the more victories that he achieves, then that means he's going to have more options for women. Remember, men achieve things primarily to get more women. I know that we like to say, man, I like money too, man. Okay, but men out here trying to get more women. Like that. That's what we trying to get, either the best women we can get, the finest, the most sought after, or we're trying to get multiple women. So when we go get the money, we don't mind having more women around. Most of us. Some men just don't, they not cut like that. But generally, a man is gonna at least attract a lot more women when he achieves more. And women know this. This is why they say, oh, well, I'm gonna feed him. I'm not gonna feed him healthy food. He needs a plant-based diet, but I'm gonna feed this man all the steaks and pork chops that I can cook. Mm-hmm. She wants him to die at 60. I know men don't like to admit that. There are a lot of wives out here who know they're killing their husbands softly. This is the spiritual dynamic I talk about in the next book. Mm-hmm. We have to watch out as men for women who are murderers, okay? And they'll kill you softly.
Yeah.
Because they don't want you to go further than what they can see.
Right.
But as a man, I'm supposed to always see further than my women. I'm supposed to always see 500 years ahead of time. What are we doing now is going to affect the 30th generation down the road. Like, we need to talk about that. You see, so anyway, that's just that. There's a lot I want to say about that. I'm about to go off in this thing.
Yeah. Can you say, and I'm throwing this out there generally, any of you guys, can you guys see that in this modern day construct where the roles have gotten reversed, and we're talking about concubinage, like, and it's almost that the man has become the concubine.
Oh yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, he's the servant. He's just there to fit the bill or to fulfill a certain demand that the woman has, and it's centered around her house, her children, her ambitions, her desires, right? Like, it's very, so you get men today that are really just in a position of a concubine to their women.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. When I used to drive Lyft and I would talk to the men, it was only the men that would take this position. They would say, got to keep the wife happy wife, happy life. And I would never agree with them, so there'd be this awkward silence. And then I kind of moved the conversation along because
that'd be a conversation, right?
Telling people the truth nowadays, it's like you're slapping them in the face and cussing them out at the same time. It's like the ultimate disrespect when you do that.
Yeah.
People like that, I let stay in that stupid because they don't want to wake up. Waking them up would be too traumatic for them.
Yeah. That's true. And it's frightening to a certain degree, right?
Yeah.
Because to embrace something that challenges a man who all his life, to the point Brother Hondo said, the woman has been talking. He comes from a family where women talk and the men stay quiet, right? And the women run their mouth, right? When they have family gatherings, the women talking and the men is all quiet in the corner, just looking at some TV, right?
And that side of my family, Brother Mike, my maternal side of the family, they, even though they owned the land, car, stuff like that, I noticed their financial base was always less than my paternal side. See, paternal side never had money issues. They never. But I noticed even the health of the men on my mother's side of the family, they were always looking haggard and broken. I say, because the women talking too much. And what's interesting, y'all, is that as I got older, I actually ended up telling some of my female elders, I was like, y'all talking too much. I actually had to speak up and say that. I was like, y'all know, because when I started traveling at 18, I was gone for many years. I wouldn't go home. And I came back and I asked several of them, I said, haven't y'all noticed that I remain youthful? Haven't you noticed that I don't get sick like y'all? Why do you think that is? I was like, I got y'all's genetics, so this shouldn't be an issue. This should show up somewhere. And I said, I started eating better too. I said, but I also get women who don't act like y'all. I actually said that one of my old, she was hot. She was mad. I said, my women, you don't like polygamy, but I have multiple women and your husband has one woman, you, and look at how he looks.
Mm.
It was like,
and that's a testament to her.
Yep.
That's a testament to her.
Yep.
Brother Bates says the nature of a woman's speech and submission will move us to accomplish more. Facts. Yes.
Yep.
Facts. Yeah. It somehow it encourages the lion in us. Right. It encourages the lion in us when you look at the pride and how the women go out, they go catch the food and so forth and whatnot. You know, their submissiveness makes that male lion willing to die for them.
Yeah, protect it.
You know,
protect and provide.
Yeah, to protect.
In fact, the lionesses bring the lion the food. They serve him.
Right.
And they help to protect the pride too. Sometimes he's chilling and they're the ones roaming around.
Right.
You know, they take care of and doing that. Actually,
and if he simps, they'll turn on him and kill him.
Yep. Yeah. I had one of my consorts one time, you know, we were walking in the mountains one day, and we were just enjoying the day. It was beautiful sky, everything. We're like 7,000-8,000 feet up, you know what I'm saying, this mountain. And we were just talking about something, and I said, hey, this is like my second time going up there, and we had walked further than I had been before. And I said, we're kind of far from the compound too. I said, well, do people like, you know, is it dangerous up here? Like, do people rob everybody? She looked at me, and she was short. She was 5'2". She looked at me and she said, sir, don't worry. She pulled her shirt up and patted her weapon. I didn't know she had brought a pistol. My woman was crazy. Like, she was nuts.
She prepared, man.
She patted her gun. She said, don't worry. I brought Papa's gun. She said, anybody messing with my man, I'm going to shoot them. And then she just started talking about the weather again. I'm like, whoa.
We're not going to glance over that.
Let's go back to that little part, right?
Yeah. So I always get women who know how to survive. That's one of my parameters for selection. And for all the men listening, you have to have a list of metrics. You have to have a whole metric that you use by which you're not going to compromise on that particular issue. So one thing that I get, for example, I don't choose women who don't know how to survive at all. Like, you have to be an herbalist. You have to be trained in firearms. You're a martial artist. Like, you have to know that aspect of economics. Like, you can't just be out here, want your nails done, want your hair done. You want to go on dates all the time. Like, no, we got work to do. So, you know, when she told me that, and the fact that she had picked it up without me knowing to protect both of us, that showed me a side of her character. And that's why I loved her so much, you know. And, you know, she ended up, as you know, she ended up passing away. But I remember going into the bedroom one day. Her parents had switched up and let us use their bedroom when I went to visit their compound. So I was up there for a few days, and they had refurbished their house. So, you know, the rooms looked different. And I remember we were leaving the room, and I said, hey, is that a shark's tooth embedded in the wall? It had a rubber ball, like a rubber band tied like in a knot around it, like a shank. And it is so normal to her family to be combative.
Right.
She looked at it, then she turned around and looked at me for like a few seconds. Like, why are you, like, of course we have a weapon in here. She said, yeah, that's a shark's tooth embedded in the wall. And she kept staring at me. I said, okay, so why is there a shark? She said, oh, that's just in case somebody breaks in the house. We can kill them with that. And then we just walked out the room. She just like that. You need that aspect where you're protected, just like we're protected, just like we protect the women in certain ways. Women also need that. So it's just something that came to my mind. You know, all of my consorts teach me lessons. Yeah. All of my consorts teach me very valuable lessons, and they make me step up my game as a man, okay, and as master of the house. So that's another thing that men need to do. You choose women that every day they're teaching you something new. It's not good enough just to have a pretty face around. That's great. I mean, that gets boring after a while. Okay, fine. Okay, girl, you fine. All right, now what else? That's how you know you become a powerful man, when a woman's beauty is not what keeps your attention. Right. Because all of us are going to get old. All of us are going to get old, and we're going to lose some of our beauty, our handsomeness as a man. We're going to lose that. So hopefully somebody needed that.
Would that be equivalent to the modern urban American ride or die, right? She'll be willing to fight for you, right?
Yeah. And I actually,
with you. She ain't gonna run. She gonna fight.
Correct. Absolutely. Matter of fact, that same Filipina, the one who with the weapons and stuff like that, she was nationally certified in the Philippines, training how to use a pump shotgun, 9mm. She was trained in knife defense, and she was trained in using a 45 caliber. I remember one time we were walking in Cebu City, and this was a 6-way intersection in the center of the city. So I mean, there were literally probably 4,000 or 5,000 people outside walking. Okay, it was packed, shoulder to shoulder. And I was looking for. We were like 10 hours away from the house, so we were visiting the city. And I said, I don't like the hotel that I got us, so I'm going to get another hotel. So she said, cool. So we went to view this other hotel. We're walking down the sidewalk, and where it was located, one of the entrances, I think we had passed the entrance, we didn't know, but the other entrance was down this alleyway, but it was broad daylight. So there were vendors in this alley. So people there. I turned, I said, oh, I see the door over there. Now this door was probably 40 meters down the alley. Okay. Remember, there's a couple dozen people down there selling stuff. I turned. Remember how small she is. I felt somebody grab me, and I turned around, and it was her. She stood behind me and grabbed me, and I tried to move her. It was like I was trying to pick up a 12-foot statue, like of marble. Like her body had just tensed up. She said, "Sir, we're not going down that alley." And I said, "But it's broad daylight. Ain't nothing happening." She said, No. We're not going down that alley. And she grabbed me and pulled me through the crowd. She said, "Sir," she said, we can't go there." She said, I said, "You picking up something?" I asked her this when we were off the street.
Right.
She said, "Yeah." So I didn't like what I sensed.
She pulled a Secret Service move on you.
Yeah, right. That situational awareness, man.
But remember, her uncle trained her. Her uncle runs like a training academy for security personnel, military forces. So she was trained by him for I think 5 or 6 years. So she was very, very, and plus her job before I met her, she had a security job. So she was like jogging, like I think 5 to 8 kilometers, like in the morning, like 4 a.m., like with her cohort at work. They make them jog. So everybody is in shape. Like all the girls are like fit, whatever. But these are the type of standards that we have to have for our women. We can't get women who ain't going to stand up with you or protect you at all cost or anything like that. I always let my women speak for me in public too. So, as you know, I like my women international. I like them to be able to speak multiple languages or dialects. So if she speaks patois, for example, I count that because that's technically, they can communicate like that in the Caribbean, right? So when I'm out there, I never talk in public unless I have to sign something. then I'll talk to whoever needs me to sign some paper. I let my women talk for me. And they translate for me, but also if it's English, they'll speak for me. They ask for directions. They will go and lead the way, and they will say, "Okay, we need to go this way and that way." Once we plan everything before we leave the house, that's when they're the ones doing all the talking, because they're like, you take care of us. There's no reason that you should be out here working. That you shouldn't even have to talk to people. Yeah. And that's a philosophy that my household has. So everybody operates like that.
Yeah. It's another, well, I mean, it's, we definitely, we basically generally talking about polygyny. Brother Tony Smith says this. He says more people are becoming interested in polygamy. Today's society, do you think it will ever be legal here in the United States? What do you guys think? You think we'll ever have a status of polygamy being deemed legal within the state marriage system here within the U.S.? Any state?
Not publicly, but privately, it's already legal. Privately, it's already legal. If you turn on A&E, they just had they started a show late last year. I think I dropped it in the Telegram, Brother Allen, about how they were looking at polygamous families. Each season was going to be like a different polygamous family. So it's already here. It's just not socially acceptable. But people have been doing it. From the conversation, from conversation we had last Monday, all of our families were polygynous. Our last generation, I could tell you my grandfather was, my father is, you know, and that's my grandfather's on both sides. And you know, you guys share the same thing. So it's already here. They just don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you would be giving men power.
Yeah.
And in this particular government is a gynocracy. Okay. If you look at the scandals that come about with politicians in the United States, whether they're local or national on the federal level, it's always something to do with the debauchery.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And when you have men in power and our sexual latitude is expressing itself, we have a structure by which we can have sex with whatever woman we want to have sex with. So we know that's up to the man who he has sex with. That's why 95% of the time this man's having sex with some woman. It's like, well, that's if he wants a woman who is in the public eye and that's whatever, that's it. He can have that woman. When Tiger Woods was embroiled in whatever with his wife, and they were posting all these photos of these women, a few of the women gave interviews. I told one of my brothers, I said, I would have gotten on that platform if I was Tiger Woods, and I would have told everybody to kick rocks because I'm Tiger Woods and I'm the richest athlete on the planet and one of the richest people on the planet. I'm a 6'1" black man. Guess what? I can have as many women as I want to have, and I can sleep with whoever agrees to sleep with me. I know that's very base, but that's where it needs to be. So they demasculate him because I worked in the golf industry for 25 years. I knew when he married that woman years before that scandal happened, I knew that was going to happen because I said they're going to emasculate this man because the golf world tries to do that, especially when black men rise up in the golf world. I've seen that as a caddy. They don't even like the caddies who are articulate and brothers. So
yeah,
because most of the black men who are caddying around the country generally are older brothers who are broken down, don't have nothing going for them. And I hate to say that, but that's what it is. But anyway, I personally don't think it's ever going to be legalized because you're going to have to place power back into patriarchal hands. And then you're going to see the entire society shift, even if only 5% of us do it and it's in the open. You're going to see a lot of changes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, so true. Yeah. Aki says the West is too focused on decreasing population numbers, or at least maintaining a level of control. I mean, that wasn't that not the concerns of the Egyptians that put our ancestors into slavery with hard taskmasters. You know, the same thing happened. The Romans did the same thing to Israel in terms of the fact that men were populating so fast because we practiced polygyny. So they started putting pressure. You know, same thing with the U.S. government. The U.S. government put pressure on the Mormons. Why? Mormons wanted to be a part of the Union. Mormons wanted to be able to have a seat in Congress. So the U.S. was afraid of that. Like, no, we're not going to let them come in here. They got too many numbers. You know, they populate too fast. They'll take over. Right. So that was the concern. Okay, if you want to come in, all right, you got to come in under these conditions.
Well, it's ironic that they try to decrease their numbers because in the northeastern United States and in the western 13 states, Mormons actually dominate the political landscape and the business landscape. Mormons are dominating that.
Right.
Mormons got money.
Yeah, the intent was to quote it as much as possible. You know, quote it or offset it as much as possible. In other words, those who already had seats in Congress, just like now, Democratic Party, what do? They allow the borders to be open, flood in. Why? Because they're trying to maintain the power that they already have. So, you know, that's basically what happened. So those who were in power, they want to maintain that power. So they see the influence. They knew that there was an expansion towards West, right? So it was only a matter of time the Mormons were going to be a part of the Union. Okay, their concern was these people come in and they be a part of the Union, they participate in Congress, they can take over. So,
yeah, and they issued a law against polygamy, Mormonism, 1889. They actually chased them.
Right.
West.
Chased them.
West.
Jailed them. You know, some of them were killed off. Right. Yeah.
Joseph Smith was in a shootout with Union soldiers. He was.
It was rough.
They were trying to get
heavily
these
persecuted. Yeah, they were heavily persecuted.
The trucking industry, y'all, is dominated by Mormons. Prime Trucking. They are, believe the founders and or owners are cousins with. There's another company. There's something carriers. They folded into Swift. I believe Swift, the folks who run Swift, are cousins or brothers with the folks at Prime. But there's a lot of trucking companies. These people are all related. Even in the drive-away industry, the people moving these vehicles around, they actually drive the vehicles that are not tractor trailers. When they move these vehicles, I can name 2 drive-away companies right off the bat that they're related. That's Mammal Transportation, and I believe Auto Drive-Away, if I'm not mistaken. Those companies are no, I'm sorry, it's not Auto Drive-Away. Might be I think it's a Jewish-owned company, but the Mammal Transportation, there's another company, and I forgot the name of that company, but there are 2 drive-away companies that are controlled by siblings. I think one is a sister, one is the sister of the brother at the other company who runs the other company. So trucking, the trucking industry is very nepotist. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're just pointing out facts. We're just reporting the news. But Mormons are running things. And I actually had a chance. I didn't say this in the last show. I forgot. But I met and stayed at the home of the great-granddaughter of Wilson Woodruff, who was the second person who took over after Joseph Smith for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I actually sat there and talked with her husband, she and her husband, and she schooled me on Mormon history. She told me a lot of stuff. In fact, she's the same woman who started the homeschooling movement in the United States. That was in Florida. That started out of Mariana, Florida. She's the one who got us all the ability to homeschool. So I stayed at their home, and she agreed to an interview. So I'm actually going to I'm actually working on a documentary with Brother Sepia Prince, and we're going to be interviewing her soon. She and her husband. They laid out a lot of Mormon history that's not even. I mean, you ain't gonna see this stuff on TV.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, as with anything, man, like those who win the war get to tell the story, and oftentimes it's the story that they tell is propagandized. You know what I'm saying? It has a slant. You know, it has a lot of spin on it. It's not necessarily the unadulterated truth of what really went down. Right. So, I mean, that's the advantage when you win. You know, when you have the military might, you win the war, you get to tell all bad things about the enemy that you just defeated.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the thing. Sister Jim said, I think it would be next to impossible to rewrite family law to govern more than one wife. A marriage certificate in the U.S. is the only legal paper a woman needs nowadays to be sure to come out sweet. Oh, here we go. Here she goes. Sweet. What did she say? Sweet in a divorce without ever talking contract or covenant with the man before getting married. Yeah, that's true. The current marital structure of the law, the provisions in terms of the marital contract, you know, definitely puts women at an advantage.
Sister Jim Marr is always on the scholarship.
Point.
She stay on it. She on it, don't she?
Yeah, we got to interview her.
Yeah.
I think we need to get it. We need to get her and Sister Deborah on the panel. You know, and interview both of them.
And Sister Jim Marr will come in like late. She comes in late in the show.
Yeah, and just come and slice it. Yeah,
just stay for 10 minutes and go.
Yeah. Very to the point, concise, and she hits it. All right, so let's go to the next one. We had definitely. All right.
What's brother Manolo? Is he?
Manolo. He said he's right here in the panel.
Oh,
he's
right
okay. The panel. He's right down on the bottom next to you. Manolo, you here, right, brother?
Yep, I'm right here.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's been commenting in the chat room.
What about our other brother here?
Derek. Derek.
Deacon Derek, you there, brother?
Yeah,
Derek.
I'm definitely here, guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
About your question there, when you were asking about the modern woman and being wife, I would say that the modern woman still wants to be a wife, but doesn't have the understanding of what a wife requires to be. And they many fall in a concubine, but I don't think they willingly fall into a concubine. They fall in a concubine by players and people who are not really sincere to them and let them be known that. But some of them might believe that the person has another person or another woman, but they're not really sure because the person is not really working from a perspective of orderly or transparency with them.
So what type of modern women would you say fit into the category you guys would say that comes to mind? And we can list them. What comes to mind that we would say fits in the category of being a concubine? You was gonna say, Brother Hondo?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was raising my eyes, was moving.
Yeah,
around.
I was.
Good, Brother D. What you said?
Yeah, I was saying that when it comes to really the wife, where you said a wife or a concubine, it really comes down to what the order or the structure that the man has in place, what he's seeking at.
Exactly.
So it really comes down really to the man if he qualifies that woman to be a wife or concubine, depending on the structure and what he has in place itself
of the man's home. So
yeah, correct.
Okay, so then can we list different types? Brother Jeremy, you be so kind to put the list down. What are the different types of modern women, right? Career woman, whatever. Name a type of a modern woman that would be categorized as a concubine at best. So we know the baby mama, right?
Baby mama one.
Right? What? Because we don't have some men do have servants, right? Wealthy men, right? They'll have servants that work inside
housemaids.
Housemaids. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? He fathered the child.
Women over 27.
Women over 20.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Another Kevin Samuel category. What he calls that, the danger zone.
Yep, danger zone.
That was the term that he used. All right. So women over 27. Servants,
women who have been divorced,
right? Okay.
Women who not women who are widows, only because that's an honorable. I mean, we still need to honor widows. You can't just
right.
And
just because she's a widow doesn't necessarily mean that she
it doesn't diminish her because she was at least honorable.
No, it doesn't necessarily mean that she has to designate it to being a concubine, because Abigail was a widow, right? But she became a wife of David, right? Even Bathsheba, she was a widow because David killed her husband, right? But she was a wife, right? So, she doesn't necessarily have to become a concubine per se, right? She could become a covenanted wife if a man, and again, it all determines on the man himself. What does he decide? What status does he want? A concubine can be elevated, right? Right. A woman could be she could start off as a concubine, right? No longer is restricted or confined to whatever duties that doesn't allow her to be a full-fledged wife, right? For let's just say she retires from her career, or she gives up her career. Let's just say she has custody of a child, and then she decides she, allows the child to have custody, take the custody of the child. So now she can be fully devoted to her husband, right? So her status can change, right? So what else, guys?
So I would say a promiscuous woman.
A promiscuous woman.
Two things. One, regarding and I actually have a chapter on what you just asked, Brother Mike, about elevating. I actually have something called the elevation ceremony. That's if under extreme duress, under the very hard circumstances, you can elevate a woman who may not be a virgin. She may not be young, or she doesn't fit any of these ideal parameters. I'll give an example. You know, I don't like to go into theory too much. I like to give examples. So my late consort, I had a talk with her one day, and because she was so highly skilled and she was really serving my economy. No, we had no issues. We had a fairly new relationship, but she really like kicked the door in, like with this is whatever your program is. This is where I'm at. I'm right there with you. And I asked her a question. In the Philippines, you can get married under Sharia law. And I asked her this question. I said, look, I'm gonna do two things. Number one, when I come back, or before I come back, I'm gonna send you back to school. She only had a 10th grade education, but the woman was intelligent. I talked about it in the last meeting we had, last Masculine Mondays. And I said, I'm thinking about marrying you under Sharia law. That way, you know, not only do I get residence, but you have the honor of being a wife as opposed to, and then we can do a lot more things here
Right.
in the Philippines and not just be, you know, everybody see us as boyfriend, girlfriend. They like whatever.
Right.
But the government will actually elevate what we can do and increase the amounts of things we can do as far as engaging the economy is concerned. And she was really thoughtful about that. She said, you know what? She said, you don't have to send me to school. She said, in fact, you don't have to marry me. She said, no matter what my title is that you've given me, I'm going to serve you regardless, the exact same way. And I said, look, we're going to talk about this again because I wanted to like really expound on it with her. So I was going to elevate her to the status of a wife because she brought everything that I needed. And she was older. I mean, she was 40. And I was willing to do that because I watched how she treated me with everyone else. And I watched how she dealt with everybody on her own, with her own personal things. That's one thing. Also, what I propose is that we, in modern times, you know, discussing polygamy in a modern context, we get rid of the whole concubine title. That's why I only call my women consorts. I never say I have a girlfriend. I haven't used that term in probably 15 years. A woman is either your wife or your consort. Consort, for example, in Beta Israel, your main wife, you also call her your high consort. That means I call my main woman my lead consort. That's right. What Emmy was. So they're the ones who know your program the best. You're generally closest with them emotionally. I know a lot of men don't like to admit that they have a favorite, but all men have your favorite. Yes, you do. Stop lying. You've been with this woman for 15 years.
You have favorite children. You have a favorite child. Right?
You got favorite children. You got a favorite contract that you have. If you're a person who has different contracts, you got favorite people you like to work with. You know, you got your best friend. You know, people even say that's my cousin who's like my brother. You say all these things. So there's nothing wrong with that. But I believe that the term concubine, we get rid of a lot of confusion. One thing I seek to do with my work is to get rid of things that don't really apply anymore. We should only be looking for women who are completely attached to our program. That's a consort or your wife if you already have a wife. That's all we should be talking about anyway. Right. You see, that's all we should be talking about. We shouldn't even be talking about concubines and mistresses and I mean, of course we discuss it, but I'm saying as far as what we're doing in real time, what this does, it elevates the status of women, even if she's a consort, because you're using a royal title. That's a title that's used for women who are attached to royalty, to a king, or to some other dignitary, a prince, or a minister, a prime minister. The women who everybody know, she with him all the time, even if he got a wife, that's his consort. Everybody says that.
Right.
So if you have different entities within a group who are attempting to achieve the same goal, we call it what? A consortium. So the Atlanta University Center, for example, that's the Interdenominational Theological Center, or ITC. That's 6 schools from different denominations. Morehouse College, Morehouse School of Medicine, Morris Brown, okay, Clark-Atlanta University in Spelman. That's a consortium. So when you have multiple consorts, or a wife and a consort, or vice versa, what have you, you might have multiple wives and one consort. You're in a consortium. A harem is your consortium, and you literally consort with them when it comes to advisement, because women who are very wise they're going to give you advice. And that's another thing for the guys. We need to listen to women sometimes, especially when we see that she's very wise and she's intelligent and she knows when to speak and how to speak to you about certain matters pertaining to your economy. So that's how you bond. That's how you become close. And it's also not only sexual activity, but her achieving orgasms. That actually helps her to bond even tighter to you. That's why some women can't let go of some dude from 20 years ago, because he was, he helped her achieve multiple orgasms. So that's what, again, it keeps going back around to why women only need to be with one man. Okay, but or else the woman achieves a lot of confusion. She takes on a lot of confusion. But hopefully that makes sense. I believe that we should get rid of that altogether, and we should only be bringing women on who have displayed absolute loyalty to the things that we have brought to her attention.
Let's take a shift from this. Thank you, brother Hondo.
Can I add one thing to the list, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure.
Since you were making that list there, I said possible to add to the list, maybe a widow.
A widow.
A widow, you can add to that list there.
Right.
For that list there, brother Jeremy. Thank you.
Yeah, she could become a concubine, right? As a concubine.
Sure, yeah.
We're making a list as to who should not be.
No, who should be a concubine? Because the question was,
I think what should or shouldn't?
It should. It should. What was the question? The question was, what type of modern woman do you think would and should qualify for concubine status, or is just a concubine at best?
Well, like a widowed woman, like she,
it could be either or. It's all up to the man. Like
that's right. That's the reason I said it's all up to that would be
right.
That would be maybe one to maybe consider. Yeah, if you can consider one what probably has kids already, something like that, or even a tattoo that I mentioned earlier.
Right. I mean, generally, what you see within scripture is that the Pilgesh was a woman who had a previous obligation as being a servant prior to being brought into wife status. So she has that dual obligation. She has one obligation to being a servant, and then she has another obligation. So today, many women are serving in some capacity within society, but yet they want to be wives, but technically they can't be full-fledged wives. So what type of modern women do you think should qualify or would qualify for a biblical concubinage status? That's the question, right? So
a biblical concubine?
Well, I mean, a physical meaning in a sense, she can't fully devote to a man and be a helpmeet, right, in his home, in his household, and she can't devote herself 100% to that man because of prior status or current status or concurrent status. And so therefore, as a result of it, she's limited in what she can offer. So that is what you normally have in the biblical examples that we have as in a Pilgesh. Is these are women who generally were servants in some sort of a way. They had previous obligations. So today most men don't have servants. They don't have maids, right? They don't have servants in the house. Here in our society, here in the US, most men don't have that, right? But you do have women who have obligations, right? Who want to be wives, but at best, what would be their status? Would it be a full-fledged wife, or would it be a concubine? In a biblical sense, right? Hopefully that sounds clear. Yeah.
Nope,
so anything else, like the example that I gave earlier of my friend? She's a professional, business professional, right? She already has children. She already has her own home. She already got her own program. She got her own thing, but yes, she wants love. She wants companionship, right? She wants someone. She needs covering, right? But she needs sex, right? Right? So any man who would take her on has to understand that she had a whole lot of things going on in her world and in her life. She has an elderly mother or a sick aunt that she takes care of. So there's a lot of demand for this woman. Is it impossible for her to be some sort of wife in some sort of a way and still have all those obligations.
No. A wife's obligation is only to you and what you're doing. That's it. And that disqualifies the vast majority of women who are already legal wives. That disqualifying, because they want to be a high-powered divorce attorney. They want to be a DA, a district attorney. They want to join the FBI, and they want to be a police officer, and they want to do everything else except serving their husband. So
worst is what you have in worst case scenario is that they're giving more respect to the divorce on the job than they are to their husbands.
That's correct. That's correct. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. Right. Call my husband, sir. What? The thought of calling their husband, sir, but they'll call the boss, sir, all day long. Yes, ma'am. No, sir.
Any woman, and I want all the brothers to hear this. If your wife or your girlfriend, whatever you're gonna call her, I know what I just said about but I know right now everybody got a title for their woman, right? So if your woman right now works outside the house and you did not direct her to or approve of her to do so, you are in a polyandrous relationship because her job takes precedent over you.
Mm-hmm.
So you are the junior husband in a polyandrous relationship,
right?
And you're therefore a cuckold. Okay, so I'm letting y'all know that. I know brothers don't like to hear that, but
you're technically what it is.
And if you can't afford to put your woman in a position, where she's only serving the household, where you don't need to be trying to household with no woman. She gonna have to stay in a Western style relationship, which she got her apartment over there. She stay with her family, and you go see her sometimes. She come over your house. You gonna have to keep it like that, because the titles come with certain duties and responsibilities and privileges.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna give my girlfriend, if you a brother, living in Atlanta, I'm not giving my girlfriend, wife privileges. She doesn't get that. But see, you as her man, you still get the same privileges that a master has, because you're still her master, whether she's a wife or whether she's a concubine or girlfriend. You still got the same duties. Right. So that's why we can't even say that in reverse, because some people can say, well, what about, he's not her husband. But go ahead.
No, I was going to add to what you said. I'm just getting a little excited because even to her serving the Most High, she must give deference to your veto power. She can't vow a vow, and it comes to your attention, and you nullify that vow, and she say, "Well, I'm going to continue doing this." So she can't even devote herself to service at the temple, right? She can't even say, "I'm going to go fry fish for the temple fish fry." And you say, I don't want you doing that, right? And she can't continue to do that under Torah, right? But if you don't say nothing, then it's as though you are consenting to it, you are agreeing to it. So if it comes to your attention, you are aware of it, and you don't say something. So it's the same principle when she goes outside the home. If you don't say nothing about it, if you don't put your foot down, it's as though you are consenting to it. And if you consent to, like Brother Hondo say, she goes against your consent, and you don't do anything about it, you don't put your foot down, then as you said, you're cuckold.
Well, I experienced this. So 2 of my consuls, one of them, after we got together, I said, look, when I leave, you got 2 weeks to quit your job. And I mean, she broke down crying. She's like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do for mine? I'll make sure you set in order. I got you. So I took care of that, right? And my other consort, I said, well, look, I would like you to quit your job because it's wearing you out anyway. You ain't no spring chicken no more. You can't be working the job anyway. You know what I'm saying? You up there lifting up pigs, the farm, or you lifting up bales of hay, and all this and that, and superwoman. I said, no. So she said, look, and this is where I mean, we have to listen to our women sometimes. She had a very valid concern. She said, babe, look, I don't want to be like other Filipinas who rely on their foreign boyfriends. She said, I know that you can and will take care of me. She said, but when you return home, I will quit my job, even if I got to have 5 jobs in a row that I quit. When you home and you home for 2 months, 6 months, whatever, I'm not going to work for anybody else. I'm going to follow you, serve you, be at the house, take care of whatever you need. Said, but I want to help my mom each month, you know, because she's too old to work. And her mom was elderly and she wasn't in good condition. So, I mean, we had this conversation for about 2 hours and we going back and forth, you know, and she wasn't being disrespectful at all. And this is when I learned to really listen to my woman. And guys, sometimes we got to listen to their concerns. She said, I don't want you sending me money or giving me money in person, and then I give part of that to my mother. She said, that's not fair to you. She said that in other Filipinos, they're going to do that. I'm not going to do that because I don't want you to look at me with derision. I don't ever want you to do that and regret having me as your woman. She said, so just let me, when you're not home, allow me to work my job. I will give part of that to my mother and I will take care of my own needs. She said, all these years, I've never asked you for money.
Right.
I said, that's true.
Yeah.
So,
in principle, what she really was conveying to you is her kind of like her servant status to her mother is not your obligation. That's
correct.
her personal obligation.
Correct.
Right?
And I wasn't home anyway. So
Right.
I could understand.
Right.
I wasn't
Right.
at the home at that time. So
Right.
I had to listen to that.
Right.
And it was fair.
Right. Yeah.
Because, yeah.
And it's powerful that she even says that. Like she, you know, like she initiated that point or bringing up that point to you, right? You know, because yeah, like she said, a lot of women, even here, a lot of women will be like, yeah, you know, you give me the money, I give the money to my mother, right? They don't have that type of honor, you know, integrity, right? That's integrity, right?
And that actually made me want to keep her too. That was a big thing for me.
She's a keeper. Yeah, she's a keeper.
Yep.
All right, but I want us to let's dig into this scripture in terms of concubine, Genesis 16. All right, so let's see what this. I'm gonna pull the screen up, and I want to read the text, and I want us to kind of like see if you notice in the text, in the passage, some of the stuff that we already talked about. See if you notice this particular woman that he makes his wife already has obligations prior to becoming his wife. See if you notice within this passage, does her status change as a result of becoming his woman or becoming his wife? See if you notice that there's a distinction between her status and the status of his full covenanted wife, right? In the text and in the passage. And it's a passage that we're all familiar with, but just for exercise, digging in the word, this is what we do. We got to look at some text. I know the discussion is great. Glad, you know, we having this great discussion tonight, but let's definitely look at some text. All right.
And also, brothers, don't forget your homework. The professor came in and gave you guys homework. You got to make a list as to what are your non-negotiables. And those are the things that you won't budge on, that you have to stick to.
Yes. All right. So the passage is Genesis 16. So starting from the first verse, it says, now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maid whose name was Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, now Yahweh has prevented me from bearing children. Please go into my maid. Perhaps I will obtain children through her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. After Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Abram's wife Sarah took Hagar, the Egyptian, her maid, and gave her to her husband Abram as his wife. All right. So what do we notice here based on what we talked about here in these 3 verses? We've been talking about concubine. We've been talking about she's a servant, right? Or she's a
She was
woman who
elevated. She was elevated by
she
the
was
woman.
elevated. In
Yeah.
what way is she elevated here?
She was elevated because her mistress Sarai wanted a child by proxy through Hagar,
Right.
and that's when, and obviously, she took this to her husband, of course, but
Right.
she gave, which is normal. It's like I pointed out earlier, it was normal for a servant girl to end up being the junior wife of the master of the house, but it was because she wanted to have a child by proxy because she still belonged, in a sense, at that time to the maid was hers.
Right.
It's almost like the equivalent of a mother's helper. To directly answer the question, there in Europe, especially Western Europe, they have this title called a mother's helper. That girl is hired. My consort, my consort used to be a mother's helper, so I know this very well. She literally was the mother's helper for the wife of a governor of one of the islands in the Philippines, and she did that for a few years. So she stuck to that wife for so many years, and that's exactly what Hagar was to Sarai. But then Sarai belonged to the husband.
Right.
See, now just to use
those are distinct contracts right there. Right.
Those two distinct contracts. Like he's still the head of her, still, because a harem, a man's harem, does not have to always include women that he's had sex with. That's any women under his jurisdiction at all.
Under his jurisdiction, exactly.
Spiritual oversight, sexual partner, wife, concubine, anybody.
Right.
Okay, but specifically that contract, as you said, that social contract they had, Brother Mike, she now belonged to Abram as his wife, and clearly she's in a junior position because Sarai later on, when they were beefing, Sarai gave the word to send her out of the house.
Send her out. Right. The other thing too, connected to what you said, is tied into the previous chapter. Because a lot of times preachers within the pulpit Christianity will use this passage to say, to dump on polygyny, and will say that, well, polygamy is, there's always confusion whenever it really comes about, and Abraham and Sarah disobeyed God, and they wanted to do God's work for him, and they stepped out of faith, and they went and tried to go this fleshly route, to try to fulfill God's promise for him, because they felt God wasn't working fast enough for them, right?
I definitely heard that sermon.
Right. But in actuality, at this point of the story of the account, they had not known that Yah wanted Sarai to be the mother of Abraham's seed. Like he didn't reveal that to them. He doesn't reveal that until the 17th chapter. And it's the same thing that Abram tried to do in the chapter before this. He wanted to elevate his male servant, right, to the status of producing seed inside his home. So this ain't the first time, right? So Abram thought, okay, well, my chief servant, Eleazar, I'm going to elevate him to the status because I don't have no ears. And then Yah said to him, like, no, he's not going to be your heir. He's not going to be your heir. Right. And so then you get to this chapter. Now Sarah's like, well, I'm barren. Yahweh has prevented me from being able to conceive. Right. So go into my handmaiden. So they tried whatever it is that they knew based on the limited information that they had. Not till the next chapter does Yah say that, no, I'm going to give you seed through your wife, Sarah. Right. And so, or the next two chapters that he says that. But in this particular one, so her status was elevated, just as if it would have been Eleazar's status would have been changed. He would have been elevated from a slave to now becoming an heir of Abraham. In this one, Hagar is just a servant maid, and now she's elevated to the status of being a part of the family, right? Because you could say Abraham was a king, right? To the status of royalty. And she went from being a servant to being one of the wives right, of this king, right? And then so when we get to the next verse, it says, he went into Hagar and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress, that's that word that Hondo used earlier, her mistress was despised in her sight. So she began to look at Sarai with contempt
and hate.
Now, why would you think that now, granted, she just got her status elevated by Sarai, right? Why would she look at her with contempt?
Because clearly she's jealous that she did, Hagar, the maid, did what the mistress couldn't.
Well, she couldn't do it. So it's kind of like, nah, I got the baby and you didn't, right?
And,
right?
you know,
then
Hagar personality don't sound like, go ahead, brother.
Then she was also younger, you know.
She was younger, right? So, yeah, right. So now I couldn't do what you old, lady couldn't do, right? So now I right, my womb is good, yours ain't, right? So it's kind of like waving it in her face, right? So then the next verse is, and Sarai said to Abram, may the wrong done me be upon you. I gave my maid in your arms, but when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her sight. May Yah judge between you and me. So now she is throwing the blame on Abram, who only agreed to what she suggested. And given what we talked about earlier, this is another thing that I noticed. She did not become Abraham's wife. Hagar did not become Abraham's wife until he consented to it. So at the end of the day, it was still his choice.
Yeah.
Of this arrangement being made inside his home. It wasn't Sarai's choice. So I guess because of that, Sarai's like, well, you know what? I'm putting all of the blame for all this misery that I'm going through now. This is your fault, right? Even though she said she suggested it or she initiated it, right? So 6, but Abram said to Sarai, behold, your maid is in your power. Do to her what is good in your sight. So Sarai treated her harshly and she fled from her presence.
That's what I thought it said. I thought it said that Hagar ran.
She ran as a result of being treated harshly.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why she ran. Anything else you guys notice based on what we talked about earlier?
That basically once they got what once Sarah got the outcome that she expected, then she began to feel the resentment. But she should have known was going to come. But then after getting that, she took it to Abram. And he said, hey, this maid is in your hands. You do with her what you see is right in your eyes. I'm not punishing her because I can gather from this, in his eyes, this woman did no wrong. But also, so he's kind of washing his hands of the situation.
Well, I mean, he's also respecting the contract, the previous contract. He's not saying, well, because I'm the husband, you can't talk to my new woman like that. That's just like a man saying to his wife, well, listen, ain't no need of you getting tired now. You got to go to work. You got that job. We got to pay these bills, baby. You got to go to work.
That's a good one.
You know what I'm saying? That's a contract that you signed. So he's really holding Sarah accountable. Like, yo, she's still your servant. And if she's disrespecting you, if she's she's disrespecting you, you got to handle that. You got to put that in check. She's within your power, is what he says. It's interesting how they each have their own contract with her. Read it for now. The angel of Yahweh found her, Hagar, by a spring of water in the wilderness, but by the spring of the way to Shur. He said, Hagar, Sarah's maid, where have you come from and where are you going? And she said, I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress, Sarai. So he's asking her, where are you coming from and where are you going, like he don't know. Right? Sound familiar. It's kind of like Yah asked Adam, where art thou? Like he didn't know, right? So he's asking her, like, but notice that the next verse is the angel of Yahweh said to her, return to your mistress and submit yourself to her authority. Now, theologically, we understand based on, Torah is angel of Yahweh is Yeshua. So this is an appearance of a pre-incarnate appearance of Messiah. And it's Messiah that's telling her to go back and submit yourself to your authority, right? So, moreover, the angel of Yahweh said to her, I will greatly multiply your descendants so that they will be too many to count. So notice how this angel of Yahweh is speaking authoritatively. An angel is not going to say, I'm going to multiply your descendants. Who has the power to multiply the descendants of a woman or any human being? Is it Yahweh or is it an angel?
Yahweh. He opens
The
and closes
creator,
the
for sure.
Yeah, so this has to be more than an angel because he's speaking like more than an angel, right? He says, moreover, the angel of Yahweh said to her, I will greatly multiply your descendants so that they will be too many to count. So notice what Yah gives to this woman, and we talked about her status being elevated. Her status is elevated to the level where you're going from the status of just being an Egyptian servant to now having descendants that you can't even account. So many of them that you can't even count. Because she was aligned to this man, Abram, whom Yah said previously he will make him the father of many nations, right? She taps right into that blessing. She goes from being a servant to tapping into the blessing of being part of the blessing of many nations. You guys see that? The angel of Yahweh said to her further, behold, you are with child and you will bear a son, and you shall call his name Ishmael, because Yahweh has given heed to your affliction. Okay, so Yahweh gave heed to her affliction. He heard her affliction. He heard her cry. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will be against him, and he will live to the east of all his brothers. Then she called the name of Yahweh who spoke to her, you are a God who sees. For she said, have I even remained alive after seeing him? So she recognized that this angel that she saw was Yahweh himself, who she saw. And she lived, right? She said, therefore, the well was called Beer Laharoi. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Berez. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar had bore, Ishmael. So, and Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to him. So Yahweh commands her to go back to remain in her polygamous construct or family dynamic, right, as a concubine. So he's telling her to be submissive to it. So if being a concubine is so submissive and so oppressive, right, why would Yah tell her to go back into that? Why would he tell her to be faithful to that? Why would he tell her that I'm going to bless you so much through that? What do you guys say on that? Brothers?
I don't think I have words for it.
No, I don't have anything to add to that. I mean, that's straight.
Yeah.
Brother Manolo, got anything to add? I haven't heard you in a while there.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing.
I will say this: it seems like there's always great strife and pain, that we would have to endure or go through in order for the next generation to be blessed.
That's a very solid point, bro, because there's something to be said, and Brother Hondo can attest for this, and I certainly can attest for this as I share my testimony. Listen, marriage is challenging.
Mm-hmm.
So now when you start making it more complex and you start adding, to your family dynamic, it becomes even more complex. And with it comes challenges. So, you know, the only thing that we see here really is that it's the family construct or dynamic that has its own set of challenges. But it still doesn't mean that Yah didn't have a way of blessing it. Because Sarah said Yah closed her womb. He closed the womb, just as he at one point in time he closed Rachel's womb, and then another time he opened it. Then one time he closed Layla's womb, and then another time he opened. He did the same thing here with Sarah. So he was the one at hand working and orchestrating all of this through their experience. Yeah. So what are we saying here, guys? What are we saying here? All right. What are we saying here? We said a lot.
We got a nice little list here of 7 types of women who would and should qualify as a concubine. So the first one we got is a baby mama. So any woman that has had a child out of wedlock and not previously being married first. The second one we have is women over 27, danger zone. The third one we mentioned was housemaid servants. I'm putting mother's helpers there, but that doesn't necessarily, I mean, it could or could not be a mother's helper. Number 4 is women who have been divorced. Number 5 is a promiscuous woman, depending on the man, and all this is depending on how you want to set up your household. So don't take this as as the gospel truth for every man. Number 6 is a widowed woman, and number 7, the deacon mentioned women with tattoos. But we stopped at 7.
What about a woman that is barren?
Wow, that's a good one, brother Manilon. That's a very good one. That's a good one.
And you learn upon before taking her on that she can't bear children, right? Or she
yes,
or she could be, or she could have a disability, right?
Yeah.
She can't do certain things, but doesn't mean because she's disabled she can't have love.
That's true.
The issue with a barren woman is you have to watch to see if she's jealous, or even an older woman. You get with an older woman. I my consorts sometime are, they be that one that, I had a consort. She's 40. I'm like, hey, she's the one that have babies, and I'm like, if you already had some of my children, we can keep having them till you 50. I don't care, but you don't have any children. And this would be your first child. By the time you're 42, approximately, we would have a child. That's too old. Not going to do it. But even though she wasn't jealous of other women, I know that women can have that seed planted if they see other women in your circle, in your cipher, on your team, your harem, if they're achieving something that is womanly that they have not achieved. So you have to watch for that. Jealousy, even if you got the best women, if you don't control and manage situations before they happen, things will happen. And something like that with her being barren, there's nothing wrong with marrying a woman who's barren, like even if beforehand, as Brother Mike said, but sometimes it's not strategic to have a bunch of children at the same time, especially in times of conflict. If you look at population numbers in different countries that went through years-long wars, their population increased. They all experienced a baby boom after that war. It's not only World War II in the United States. This is after the Vietnam War in Vietnam. This is after the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. This is after any war you name on the planet.
Why is that?
Okay, so let's imagine if your country has 200 million people, and say 50 million of which is a large part of the population is actually actively engaged in a war. Is it wise to start popping out a bunch of babies if the war lasts 10 years? Do you want to have babies during the time of combat? But when you settle down, okay, hey, war's over. we killed off the enemy, or they defeated us, but they retreated, they gone. There's an occupation, even if they lost the war and there's an occupation. There's a time, there's a respite, there's a time that you can take out. Now, okay, now I can get with my woman. We can start. You're gonna have babies. You're sitting around, your woman looking good. You ain't had no soft skin in a while because you over here fighting in the jungle,
right,
or in the desert. You're going to want to mate, and that is actually a human survival mechanism. You naturally want to mate after times of great duress. See,
makeup sex, right?
yeah, basically, yeah. But you don't want to do that during time because your mind and your energy, your blood is flowing toward a particular direction. You want to go and fight. Now, of course, you have down times where during the war you may have sex, but there are babies born during war. But when people are at peace, now you really want to go have some babies. Like, that's going to be purposeful.
I.e. Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul's suggestion in 1 Corinthians 7. Concerning this present times, I would that if you're not married, remain single. If you're, single, do not marry, right? Or what have you. I know I said it messed up, but that was his point, because they were facing imminent wars or persecutions during that time. It was a time of instability. So he was basically giving wisdom that it wouldn't be a wise thing to marry now. And if you're married, secure your family. Don't seek to try to get divorced right now, right? So he was thinking in terms of being strategic in that particular chapter, 1 Corinthians 7.
Well, another example.
I would add it. Okay.
Yeah, Derek.
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Finish your thought there.
Brother Mike, who do you want to go first, brother?
No. Derek said he deflected to you.
Oh, okay. Real quick. So some of you may have heard of Rabbi Gershom. Okay. Oh, Rabbi Gershom wrote a letter to the Jews in Europe and said, don't engage in polygamy. That's false. He was writing, and the people try to spin this, the anti-polygamists try to spin this. Rabbi Gershom was writing to the Jews in Germany and France. And because they were under persecution, these are European Jews at the time, were under very deep persecution. He wrote a letter to them and told them to chill with that for a minute. So that was a strategy, and that was a war strategy to deal with potential conflict. So there's nothing wrong with that, even though, of course, we're all promoting polygamy here. But he's saying, hey, look, don't be trying to do that because of A, B, and C. And people knew. So a lot of people misinterpret his letters as, see, Rabbi Gershom banned polygamy. So they don't even understand halakhic law. Halakhic law, there are many rabbis in existence on the planet at the same time. So no one rabbi can just say, this is the way.
Yeah.
Go ahead, brother.
No, he can't make a unilateral decree or lay down a unilateral doctrine worldwide. Everyone has to follow it.
Precisely. He can't do that. And when people, especially European Jews, are trying to make this argument against polygamy, they bank on the ignorance of the listeners.
Yeah.
And this is why I study everything strictly from a Hebraic perspective. I don't listen to the Christian perspective. I don't listen to no other perspective. So let me find out what these people were doing then, and let me find out why a letter was written. Why was that book of the Bible written?
Yeah.
Are the 66 books really the only Bible? Or is that the oldest Bible? Is Hebrew the oldest biblical language? I'm asking those questions. When you start asking those questions, you go back further and further, and you get closer to the actual source material. You also get closer to the entire reasoning behind things being written, because everything on the planet that has ever been written, fiction, nonfiction, eyewitness account, it was written for a precise reason to a particular set of people. And no thing that has ever been written was written for absolutely every human being on the planet, because it is physically impossible to see everything at the same time. So everything that's been written was written for a reason, including Rabbi Gershom's edict against polygamy. When he cannot break Torah, no rabbi can issue an edict against Torah. That's the third thing. So
and that's why that's the danger in taking even Hebraic scriptures, the Torah, and the writings of the apostles and the like, and try to make that fit and apply to every nation, every time, every situation and stuff. Like, no, in order to really understand these texts, you got to understand it through the lens of the people that it consists of. That's the only way that you can really grasp it. Other than that, you're taking it out of context.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is good talk. So again, she's a concubine at best. What are we saying here with this title here tonight, fellas?
Okay, can I say something before the end?
Yeah, go ahead, brother D.
Yeah. I was saying about the barren lady. Regarding the barren lady, if you have that structure and also that order of meaning that manuscript that you're going by, it shouldn't be a rise of an issue. And if there's any kind of issue, you should be able to tweak it. Because I've known a lot of women who are barren or not barren, meaning they just got older and they just didn't find somebody at the moment, but they have a strong desire to actually be mothers, and some of them are wonderful mothers when they have adopted, and sometimes they become even sometimes better mothers than the ones who can have kids themselves.
Yeah.
And if we really reach, and another thing too, if we really reach to a specific opportune time to have kids, I think many of us, even on the panel or even listening to us, would not be here. It was not an opportune time. If it's possible, of course, we want to have the right situation there to have kids. But guess what? You know what? Many of us might not be here if they were actually planning it out. You definitely got to plan it out is the best way to go. But definitely, I don't agree with that thing specifically. Wait for a specific time. If you have certain things in place, there's no time than the now.
Yeah, indeed. Anyone else? What are we saying here? She's a concubine at best to this title. Whether we summon it up.
Well, I'm gonna go back to the role of titles. I would never use the phrase in the conversation with a woman. I mean, I know we're doing that for the purpose of
concept, but I mean, and granted, we don't necessarily. Again, that's up to the person, but the brother. But again, the concept, like in terms of the concept, like
even the concept. What I'm saying is we have to elevate our speech patterns when we're dealing with each other. So the concubine at best, we're talking about a woman. So we have to look at, okay, would I say this or even anything similar to a woman or within earshot? I'm talking to one of my friends about a woman of interest, and that's something I learned a few years ago when I was actually talking with a potential consort about one of my other consorts, and she saw that as negative, and I was like, well, it's not necessarily negative what I said. She just took it out of context, and I sat back and thought about it because she was really hurt by what I said, and it wasn't to this day it wasn't negative, but I said, I'm going to have to watch my speech patterns. Then I started examining kind of how everybody we talk about each other men, and talk about the women, how the women address us, and how they talk. I said, we have to be very, very careful how we use words about each other, even in this space. Because remember I was saying that one of the second problem that men are having is we don't articulate it well toward and around women and even among each other. So that's why so many invaders are coming into this space now. Well, this is polygamy. They're trying to redefine polygamy.
Poly.
Poly or polygamy is the woman needs her freedom too to have other men. And I just saw something. I was going back and forth with somebody on Instagram, last couple of days about that. And they ended up blocking me because it was too much truth. It was way too much truth. I said, no, you don't get to redefine words. See, again, when women try to overpower men, they're going to try to redefine speech because women control speech. That's a feminine thing. That's why women actually don't like it when men talk too much. See, now we gotta go deeper. Women don't like that. Women like to see men doing things. If you listen to how women talk about men when they're the most attracted to men, the women will talk about in terms of what the men are doing. They'll say, "Oh, I love it when I love watching my man build stuff around the house, or he's fixing his car. Oh, well, the guys are playing basketball. You know, when the ladies are younger, they're like, we love watching the guy go to the court. You know, Brother Mike, you from New York. You know, the ladies be lining up at the court sometime in the summertime, be watching the guys play basketball. They like to see us doing things and achieving things, not talking so much about it. So even as much as all of us talk about polygamy now in this space, that's one reason why I try to rest on examples and documentation, and not so much let's pontificate about it, because at the end of the day, the women who are watching this, they might talk one of us up one day, and we got to have a plan in place. They want to be, you to be very concise. Okay, this on these days is what I do. This is my prayer time. This is what I got going on. I have an estate plan. This is what I expect of you, and they expect you to be concise, and they expect to see it. Remember, I told you, Brother Mike, I think I said it on camera. That's one reason why, after all these years of traveling, I said I have to get my own place. It's not good enough for me to go visit my women or to have my place overseas. I need a place here, because it's just a good aesthetic. You know what I'm saying? I have my little oranges in the background. You know what I'm saying? I made sure I had my place all set. You know what I'm saying? I made sure it was I chose that place in particular because I said I need to do and not talk about. I don't need to do overseas. I'm here in this bubble in the United States, and I need to make sure that something is happening. So it's a lesson, I think, when it comes to our speech patterns. Again, I always want to talk to a woman in terms of consortium and being a wife. I don't use any other terms with women. I haven't called a woman a concubine in probably almost 20 years. I just haven't used the term with them, and they respect that. I'm just telling all the fellas, I've tested this. Women will get on board when you start talking about them in the high titles, like, oh, I'm a consort. Isn't that like the woman of a dignitary, a European dignitary? They impressed by that. And you talking to them like that, like, say, what skills do you have? Oh, you know, I was an attorney for 10 years. You know, now, you know, I just run a coffee shop. You know, I got a little coffee shop down the road. Okay, you know what? That's dope. I love coffee. But you know what? I know how to make my own chocolate. You know, I'm just thinking things that I've done with my women, right? And it impresses them so much when you talk to them without any demeaning words.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, this brother, that's when they start looking us in the eyes like, oh, you for real, ain't you? That's when they cheeks start flushing, you know, things like that. And they warm up to you. And again, I'm just saying what I learned the hard way. Because beforehand, I'll just be telling them like, look, man, you just I don't talk to him like that anymore.
Yeah,
so that's what I say about the phrase. I always want to elevate them, even if they don't become my woman. There's no need to insult them.
Right. I get it. Makes sense. Anybody else? What are we saying here in terms of this topic? She's a concubine at best, or the French word is paramour at best, or a consort that has previous obligations. You know,
entanglements,
right? Right, yeah,
okay,
data entanglements, right?
Interesting.
He's preoccupied with my son's best friend, right? Yeah.
It's like that.
Yeah. So
I would say, prior to when you have an ecosystem and it's functioning properly, you have to be very careful what you add to that ecosystem, because it either can imbalance it or it can cause us a lot of issues to it. So I say a lot of fasting, a lot of deep prayers within what you want to do, and what Brother Jeremy always mentioned, you know, vet these women.
Yeah, wisdom. That's wisdom. That's wisdom.
And see if she can, you know, if she will be a good fit into that ecosystem, or even if you even need a concubine at all, because maybe you might not need one.
Right.
So it all depends on the woman and the blueprint that you have, and and using them prayer and fasting and God as your guide.
Right.
I mean, a man can always use a consort or a mother helper. You can always use one of those, especially if your woman's having children. You know, she's going to be down and need that extra help.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it all starts with the foundation, and part of that foundation is making sure that you know how you want your the structure of your house to be done. You know, it's all well and fun and resources as the brother mentioned earlier. He hit it on the head along with you guys. Brother Barnes mentioned earlier about resources. Make sure you have those things tight. And from the interview we had last week with Brother Hondo, what helps a lot of that is men having their own business.
Yeah.
Whether you're a truck driver or just doing anything, making sure you have that access to dedicate the time to this, but also that you have those resources and that income coming in to actually support your household and grow your household.
Yeah.
So we should always be moving upward as men and never staying stagnant.
Yes.
There's always something bigger to do. There's always something more to go out there and get. Now, it doesn't mean you need to go out and conquer the world, but this goes back to, again, having a vision for your household.
Right.
Where are you trying to move to? And us as men, you guys really should be saying, okay, in 10 years, where do I want to be? And then when you get 5 years into it, now you want to look at, okay, 20 years, how do I set this up for the grandkids or the great grandkids, and what is really the direction going to be for the lineage going down?
Right. Yeah, you always got to be thinking, build and move. Listen, all of this is to fulfill the commandment: be fruitful and to multiply, replenish the earth. Right? It's about expanding. It's about down the road. It's not about you. It's not about the fun that you have with your woman or women that you have. It's beyond that, and that's the whole purpose of all of this. Aki Manilow, what are we saying? Is he still here? Brother Manilow? Yeah, I think he got off. So then, well, with that, I think we hit this on all cylinders, man. We flashed out. I didn't really even think that we were gonna go this in depth, on this particular topic, on the subject of concubines. I was just thinking in one angle, but it mushroomed.
Right.
Yeah, which is a great thing. We got a lot more out of this topic. What are the announcements for anything coming up? I know we got, again, we got to put this up here for Brother Hondo. His next book, me as an economic warfare debut. February 25th. So be on the list and be in anticipation and keep looking out. Yeah.
And also, if you guys haven't gotten it, go ahead and pick up his first book on Amazon, The Polygamist Papers.
Yes,
it's a great read to get you in anticipation not only for his next book, but it's something that's also going to help you set the foundation.
Yes,
and you can find that on Amazon, by the way.
Yeah.
Polygamist Papers.
Yes.
And it's got 113 reviews right now. It's rated 4.6 out of 5 stars. So it's done very well over the years.
It's outstanding. As I told you was a pioneer, man. So Hondo, I said I told you were a pioneer, right?
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So Aki, Brother Manilow, I see you just came back in on the panel. Is anything you want a summation that you want to give up about what we talked about here tonight?
I think I would say that it's good to, like, if you see a woman that you'll know that you could tell the difference, and that, how do I say it? That it's good to have a discernment. It's good to have a discernment of what she really is. Like, don't try to make her, a full-blown wife if she's concubine material. Or I feel like if she's wife material, don't try to make a concubine out of her.
Right. So in other words, she got previous obligations and expectations, right? So she has previous commitments, right, prior to you becoming one with her, right, or taking her on. You can't expect her to give you 100%. As a virgin who doesn't have any children, fresh out of school, right? No job, right? You can't put those same expectations on her if she's leading a corporation of 100 employees. Right?
Yes.
Total different scenario, right?
Yes, and I made the mistake in the past of expecting too much out of the wrong person.
Yeah, because in reverse, and this is kind of like in reverse to what Hondo said earlier. Like, we want to be mindful to not really speak down on women and be mindful of their feelings and use terms that they might find offensive, right? But in reverse, we don't want to put a woman in an expectation that she really can't live up to, right? That would be equally wrong as well, abusive, right? To put demands on her that she can't really even fulfill. She's 60, but you upset with her because she's not getting pregnant. Right? Like, that doesn't make sense, right? So to put demands on her that she can't live up to, would be, kind of strenuous on her
and misleading.
and misleading, right?
You can't drive a Ferrari like it's a Toyota.
Good point. Good analogy. Good analogy.
I tip my hat to you on that one, brother, man. A good metaphor.
Or drive a Lamborghini in a dirt road, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But this was good, guys. This was good, man. I really enjoyed this. How about you in the chat? Did you enjoy this discussion tonight? You enjoyed the discussion tonight? Let's please put a 1 in the chat. If you enjoyed this discussion tonight. I definitely have fun talking about it. I was always up here with my brothers, whatever it is that we talk about. Brother Bay said the concepts and precepts are key in this matter. I'm willing to be flexible on language within reason. Amen to that. Jen Moss says, I am so glad to hear you guys discuss being wise and careful concerning these topics. With watching your speech towards the women and how much is presented to the general public. Thank you, sister. All right.
Yeah, and speaking on that, being wise and how we speak about the women, you do want to speak higher of a woman that you're looking to come into your house because she represents you.
Right.
So that's just a standard that you should have.
Yes.
And as brother Allen and brother Solomon have been pointing out. So we also really get that as well, man. Like, you already know what you should be dealing with quality women. And that's also what the vetting process is for.
Right. No matter what her status is, right?
Right.
She has prior obligations or not. And those of you who are watching this on a playback, yes, we do encourage you, write a comment in the comment section. You want to know your thoughts. What do you think about what we're talking about here tonight? About, what we said about the subject on concubinage. Give us your thoughts. Give us your feedback. Do you think that a man can actually take on a woman who has obligations prior to him? And it can be a relationship or it can be a union whereby she receives benefits and he receives benefits and they make it work. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Definitely.
You saying like to speak on it or just to type it in the comments?
Yeah, I want them like people in the playback who's watching this after we finish the live stream to comment on it. I want to get their thoughts. I want to get their feedbacks on the things that we said, because guess what? Whatever your feedback is can lead to more content, right? You suggest something or you might ask a question that might lead to another subject that we can talk about here on Masculinity Monday. That's how we came up with a lot of these topics. It's based on the dialogue that we have with the audience and the panel. Yeah.
May I add one more thing, Brother Mike?
Sir.
In light of the way the world is going, especially during the worldwide pandemic, and how we watched people fall apart. I mean, emotionally, mentally, people just fell apart. 70% of people in the United States lost their job. Most of those were women because the service industry was very, at that time, almost unnecessary.
Right.
We have to tribe up, and whatever the highest ideals are that we can implement, those are the things that we need to implement. And we need to be closer in proximity. So whatever we're going to be doing, whatever people we're going to have around, we need to start looking to shift and even relocate sometime to a particular region or a town or a city. That way people can get things done. A lot of times when we're talking about things, we're all scattered,
Right.
and you have to have, say, somebody across town or what have you. Like I've done that with some of my brothers. We live in the same region now, and we knew the pandemic was coming. At some point, we prepared on every level. As soon as that pandemic started, we went and bought land because we were ready.
Right.
And we moved closer. With the women, same thing. They have to have a mindset of being fluid with not gender fluid, but being fluid economically where they can adjust if necessary. And we have to be very careful, especially as men, when we are discussing this with our women, because, and even potential consorts, potential wives, we have to say, look, A, B, and C is coming down the pipeline. We may have to move in a year. Even if you join me now, we may be moving 6 months because you're coming in at a time of transition where we're shifting things around. That's something I found that's particularly difficult for some women to manage intellectually when a man is able to just get up and, hey, we got to move. Because a lot of times they have their family nearby. It's like, well, you part of my household now. We have to move. So it's just an admonishment toward everyone who's going to listen to the program, even after the fact. We have to geographically be willing to prepare to shift things around if necessary, go into a new industry, pivot into, say, from cybersecurity into writing books, or vice versa, or going to get a second or even a third degree, like a third university diploma or what have you. We need to be prepared to do that. That's just something that came to my mind.
Yeah, definitely. And granted, it ties into at the core of being Hebraic, being pilgrims, being some would call nomads, right? Being able to just pick up and move from one location to another location, right? Wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, right? One location to another location, right? Herdsmen, right? We're gonna go where the fresh terrain is at, right? So yeah, I mean that is built in the fabric, the moral fabric of what it is to be an Israelite. Indeed. But I definitely enjoyed this talk, man. I enjoyed it for one. Definitely, it's a blessing. I look forward to the next one. I don't have the title up for the next one yet, but it should be up for the next few days. And definitely this coming Shabbat, we have Shabbat morning Bible dig at 9 a.m. right? And that is the more general forum where we have open to men and women to be on the panel. We've had us. I would love to have Sister Jen Mar come on a panel on Shabbat morning Bible dig, and then we got Sister Deborah up there as well. That would be blessed to have both of them on, and we can have a well-rounded discussion, and we can talk about these topics that we will be addressing. And we've been talking about. The topic is about it's not adultery. It's about worship. What's the title, Brother Jay?
Spiritual larceny. That's what we're talking about.
Spiritual larceny, right? Spiritual larceny of a woman's worship. Now, when you look at the title, you may think that it's talking about an issue with women in their worship, but really it's how modern day women's worship really reflects us as humans. Oftentimes both men and women, we are guilty of this larceny, this theft, where we try to steal the glory from the Most High instead of giving it to Him. We do things to, rather than give Him the glory, we take glory from Him and try to put it onto ourselves. So it's a form of idolatry. So that's what we're dealing with. So we're gonna go into a second part of that. We did the first part the last time. And so we look forward to that, to this coming Shabbat morning Bible dig. Yeah. So we said, Sister Jim Moss said, what time it would be? CA time. Oh, yeah, it's 9 o'clock Eastern time. So, I'm on New York time. So you'll be 3 hours. So it would actually be 6 a.m. for you. So you would have to really soldier up or you can come in. You can come in an hour later. It doesn't matter. I can send you the link, but just email me and let me know. And we could do it like that.
It used to be 5 a.m. for you, Sister Jim. So we gave you an extra hour there.
I'm sure Sister Jim Mars.
That's a good one, Brother Jeremy.
I'm sure Sister Jim Mars on her
like a farmer, like a farmer, huh? Farmer time.
I'm sure Sister Jim Mars on her pre-dawn prayer. So 6 o'clock, she's already been up for 3 hours. So she's good. She's good. I'm sure she'll show up.
Yes, spot on, Brother Barnes. Yes, it does not equal whore.
Exactly.
And thus, Brother Hondo's insistence of using the term consort. Yeah. Okay. Goodness. All right. Blessings. All right. So I'm gonna ask Brother Deke. He's here. If he,
I am nominating Brother Manilow because I didn't hear him all.
Manilow actually did pray to open the prayer.
Yeah.
He should close it. Let him close it.
All right, we could pick. All right, Brother Manilow, would you be so kind to close us out in the word of prayer?
All right, Abba God, we thank you for this Masculine Monday. I thank you for the things that I've learned here. I thank you for being able to learn from Brother Hondo and Brother Mike and Jeremy and everyone else. I just thank you, and just pray that I continue to learn, that we all continue to learn from each other, and that we be enlightened, and that we be able to apply this in our everyday lives. And I just thank you, and I thank you for the reminders, the reminders that I've heard here, that of things that I need to do in my own life. And we just thank you, and we pray for your protection tonight, that we all have a blessed sleep, a blessed night, that you just keep us safe, our family and friends. In your son's name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. Thank you for
Brother Manilow. Thank you. Fantastic.
All right. Well, family, we want to thank you all once again, sticking it out with us, hanging out with us. Thank you again for this wonderful stream, everybody that's contributed to this. So for King and Kingdom, we bid you shalom. Until the next time, peace.
Shalom.
King, Kingdom, shalom, shalom.